Today we're gonna be going the core for your EPA 608 review. This is gonna be practice test number 1. What does the ozone in the stratosphere above the earth consist of? Now, if this question is really simple, if you have gone to school or if you are going to school, you know that the stratosphere above the earth consists of oxygen atoms, and each oxygen atom has 3 molecules. It's not gonna be 2 molecules, it's not gonna be 4 molecules, and it's not gonna be 5. It's gonna be 3 molecules, and that will be the answer. Which of the following refrigerant has the lowest global warming potential? Now, the way I thought about this question while I was taking the test is basically to have a high global warming potential, it has to have a chlorine. The only refrigerant that does not contain a chlorine, it will be HFOs, which we all know R134A has chlorine. We all know R407C has chlorine, and we all know R410A has chlorine. So the only answer is R600A, and that refrigerant does not contain chlorine. Which of the following gases is used as a baseline measurement for global warming potential? Ammonia, that would not be it. CFC12, that would not be it. That's actually a refrigerant, so you never, that's not a baseline measurement for global warming potential. And propane is basically ammonia. So if you have two answers that are basically the same, none of them are the answers. So the answer for this one and the baseline measurement, it will be carbon dioxide. Which type of refrigerant typically has the lowest global warming potential? CFC, that would not be it. That has chlorine, and we basically went over this already. If it has chlorine, it has a high global warming potential. HFC, it wouldn't be it either. They are all equal. No. The answer in here will be HFOs. I did say before that HFOs does not contain chlorine. So that will be the answer that has the lowest global warming potential. That will be the answer for number 3. What is the state of refrigerant entering the compressor of a refrigeration system? Now, entering the compressor, you never want liquid entering the compressor. So high pressure liquid and low pressure liquid is off. So you only have high pressure vapor and low pressure vapor. So entering the compressor, you always want low pressure vapor. So that will be the answer. B will be the answer for number 4. Why are HFO refrigerants less flammable than hydrocarbon refrigerants? So this answer is simple. We already went the HFOs do not contain chlorine. Is basically going down the line. So HFOs have a hydrogen and fluorine, and you see fluorine as one of the answers. So that will be the answer for number 5. What does Section 608 certification allow technicians to do? So you are basically studying for your EPA, so you should know what this is for. But let's go over the answers. So import R22 from overseas, that's completely off. Service motor vehicles air conditioner, no, that is a different certification. This does not cover motor vehicles. perform any type of work on any type of HVAC equipment. So for some higher level HVAC equipments, they will require you to have other stuff. So the only answer for this one will be purchase or handle refrigerants. Type of refrigerant has the highest ODP, stands for ozone depletion potential. HCFCs, HFCs, CFCs, and HFOs. So the way I teach this in class is the one that doesn't have an H but has two C's. So that basically means chlorine, fluorine, and carbon. The one that has a hydrogen, chlorine, fluorine, and carbon, it could be a really good answer too, but the hydrogen kind of like slows down the chlorine. So the answer for this one will be CFCs, chlorine, fluorine, and carbon. Which of the following refrigerant contains chlorine? R22, R134A, R410A, or R1234YF. So that one, D is completely off because it does not contain chlorine and is an HFO. So the one that will be the answer for this one will be R22, which has a lot of chlorine. HFC refrigerant contains which of the following? So you basically go down the line. So it's asking you about HFCs. So is hydrogen, fluorine, and carbon. So the answer for this one will be obvious. It will be D, hydrogen, fluorine, and carbon. What is being done in the US to stop damage to the stratospheric ozone layer? So this answer is very simple. Well, it might be very simple for me because I already passed it, but basically how you gotta think about it, you are dealing a lot with refrigerants. That is why the EPA is there. So basically the answer for this one will be phasing out the use of CFCs and HFCs. How should disposable of a cylinder of CFC, HCFCs, and HFC be discarded? A. Bleed any remaining refrigerant. Just reading that, you never want to let any refrigerant out. You never want to bleed it out. So no, that is completely off. That would not be the answer. Use the cylinder as a recovery tank. No, it's already contaminated, so you don't want to do that. Fill cylinder at an approved facility and reuse. You don't want to do that either. What you want to do is recover any remaining refrigerant, render the cylinder useless, and recycle the metal. In addition to fines and being required to appear in court, what penalties can be imposed on service technicians who violate the Clean Air Act? They may be required to take an online test. No. They may be required to take mandatory training. No. They may have equipment confiscated. No, that does not make sense. Only answer that makes sense is that they may lose their certification. For an appliance that uses CFC, HCFCs, and HFC refrigerant, which of the following violates the prohibition on venting? So A, as accidental release. Just by reading that, it says accidental, so it is like you couldn't control it. It's accidental, so that would not be it. Refrigerant emitted when connecting or disconnecting low loss to charge or service a system. That would not be it. Low loss is there for a reason, and when you connect hoses, when you connect or disconnect hoses, you might let out a little bit that is called the de minimis. For this one will be a refrigerant emitted when cutting a line without properly evacuating the system. That is your fault because you did not evacuate the system properly. So for this question, without reading the whole question, I have a tip. So just by reading chemical analysis on the test, whenever you read chemical analysis or the process and it has a chemical analysis at the end, it is always going to be reclaiming. And that's a way of knowing something without reading the whole question, having to read the whole question to find out the right answer. And it says chemical analysis is always going to be reclaiming. So for this one, another way to look at this one without reading the answer, glycol oil, ester oil, and castor oil are all the same thing. So for this one, you're not gonna have either one of those be the answer because they're all the same. So the only one that is the answer in here is A. Should refrigerant blends be charged? Now an example of a refrigerant blend is R410A, and you always wanna charge it as a liquid phase. So on this one is asking about your gauges. So I will put a picture up here of the gauges, but this one is asking about the low side, and I will tell you it is not going to be PSIA. So A and D are not going to be the answer. Torns and microns, that will not be the answer either. The answer for this will be PSIG and inches of mercury. So another tip for this question will be, it's asking you a process again, and about refrigerant, of course, but whenever this a process and is cleaning refrigerant or anything that has to do with cleaning, so you just read the word cleaning when it's asking you about a process, and the answer is always going to be recycle. So without reading the whole question, you see the word cleaning, you know the answer will be recycle. Which factor does not affect the speed of recovery? Now for this one, standing vacuum test, now you will get different readings letting you know that you have a leak, but it will not be the most effective method. Audible sound, that will not be it because sometimes you don't really hear anything or it's in a space that you can't really hear. Helio torch, no, that would not be it. That was used back then, but and like you can detect leaks, but that's not the most effective method. The most effective method is electronic or ultrasonic tester. So in this one, you found different type of refrigerant in a system that is not meant for the refrigerant. So what should you do? Bend the refrigerant? No, you never want to do that. That is against EPA. You don't want to do that at all. What you want to do is you want to recover the refrigerant, but in separate tanks, so you don't have a mixture of refrigerants, and that will make the refrigerant contaminated. So you want to recover the refrigerant, but in separate tanks. Which factor does not affect the speed of recovery? The size of the equipment being evacuated, that will affect it, because the bigger the equipment that's being evacuated, the longer it will take, and the more refrigerant it has, the longer it will take. Ambient temperature, yes, the temperature will affect it depending on if the temperature goes up, the pressure is also going to go up. If the pressure goes down, the pressure goes down. The amount of moisture in the system, that is the number one thing. If you have moisture in the system, the speed is going to be affected tremendously. The brand of micron gauge used, no, that will not affect it because it's a brand. You're gonna have a good micron gauge anyways, so the brand does not affect it. So that's the answer. So this answer will be simple. Safety precautions. You basically, a tip in here is if it says safety, that's a precaution, so that won't be the answer because it says except. So wear safety glasses, of course. Wear protective goggles, protective gloves, of course. Follow all safety precautions, has the word safety, of course. The only one that shouldn't be done, and the ones that's not the answer, the one that is the answer, remain at least 5 feet away from the operating equipment. That will be the answer for number 23. Refrigerant cylinders should be all of the following except be free of rust and damage. They do need to be free of rust and damage. Be secure. They do need to be secure. Be labeled. They also need to be labeled. Filled to 95% of its capacity. No, the capacity is 80%, so that will be the answer because it says except. All the other ones are, that's what you should do. That one does the answer because it says except. It will be filled to 95% of capacity. So, question number 25. So on this question, it is really simple. You are talking about a DOT. So the DOT requires you to have to attach DOT classification tags. They don't really care about OSHA. OSHA cares about OSHA. Shipped by EPA carrier. No. Do all the above? Not really. Because not all of them will make sense. The only one that makes sense is attached DOT classification tags. The DOT cares about that, so you should do it. We have covered the core for practice test number 1, and next week we're gonna cover type 1 for practice test number 1. Peace. We are back, guys, and today we are gonna be doing practice test number 1, but today we're gonna start with type 1. What is typically used on small appliances? The answer for number 1, and the only one that makes sense, is a straight piece of tubing that is entered using a piercing service. Now for this question is basically the definition of small appliances. And again, whenever you're taking the test, remember what section you're on. You're on type 1. So it's basically asking you the definition of type 1 on this question. And the definition is appliances containing 5 pounds or less of a refrigerant that have been hermetically sealed and charged at the factory. Now, for this question, it is very simple. Again, focus on what section you're doing. You're doing type 1. So the answer for this one is very simple. The one that has type 1. So type 1 technicians or universal technicians. That will be the answer for number 3. Question number 4. You are required to recover 80% of the refrigerant. It doesn't matter if you're using a system-dependent or self-contained recovery device. The answer for this one is either of them. So the answer will be either a system-dependent or a self-contained recovery device. Number 5, which of the following does not meet the criteria for Type 1 certification? This one is also very easy. Or it might be easy because I already took the test. But the answer for this one is basically not in the book. It doesn't cover it. 608 doesn't cover it. It's a different certification, and it will be A. Motor vehicles, that doesn't cover it, so that's a different certification. I believe that is 609 certification. So that A will be the answer. Now for number 6, the only answer that really makes sense is in here will be D, a domestic refrigerator. So the maximum allowable charge to use a system-dependent recovery device would not be 5 pounds, it would not be 10 pounds, and it would not be 50 pounds. The answer will be 15 pounds. Now for this question, basically the definition of type 1 will tell you the answer. So the answer for this question, it will be 5 pounds, because a type 1 appliance is a maximum of 5 pounds or less of refrigerant that is factory charged and hermetically sealed. So 5 pounds will be the answer for number 8. For this question, I want you guys to remember when there is an inoperative compressor, it will be 80%, and 4-inch vacuum. When the compressor is operating, so an operative compressor is 90% and 4-inch vacuum. So non-operating 80%, operating 90%, and 4-inch vacuum for both. So looking at D and C, they say 75% of refrigerant and 95% of refrigerant. So that is completely off. Those are not the answer. And B, it says 80% of refrigerant, but the compressor is operating. Remember, when the compressor is operating, it's 90%. So B will not be the answer either. The answer for this one will be A. Now for this one, there is 3 refrigerants that a refrigerator could be factory charged with, and the only one that won't be, so it will be the answer because it does say except in this question. So R404A will be the answer. Now this question is asking you, why should you let the cylinder stabilize to room temperature? And the answer for this one is basic. So you need to let it stabilize to room temperature, because the comparison to the pressure temperature chart will only be accurate if the pressure and temperature are stabilized. So how do you get them stabilized? They are stable. So how do you get them to be stable? You let the cylinder stabilize going into another room, so adapting to the room temperature. This one is simple. If you have both sides connected at the same time, you are gonna improve the speed of recovery. So the answer is A. You are recovering a refrigerant. So what do you want to know? The first thing that you want to know, you don't really care about anything else, is the type of refrigerant that you are recovering. How do you do that? You look at the nameplate. The nameplate will tell you exactly what type of refrigerant you are recovering, and you want to know the type of refrigerant you are recovering so you don't mix refrigerants. So the answer would be B. Know the type of refrigerant that you're recovering, so you can prevent contamination. So What should a technician do if they suspect the refrigerant to be contaminated? This is simple. There is a facility for that, and what you want to do, turn the refrigerant in for reclamation. That will be the answer for this question. So a tip for this question, to do it faster, once you see the word drop in, and I tell all of my students this, once you see the word drop in substitute, there is no such thing as a drop in substitute. So that's the answer right there. There is no such thing as a drop in substitute. If a reclamation facility receives a tank of mixed refrigerant, the two things that they may do is, one, they may refuse to take the refrigerant in, and two, they may charge you extra. So that will be the answer for number 16. A will be the answer for number 16. A passive system-dependent recovery process for small appliances is self-dependent, so no, it does not use a pump. Must use a pressure release valve when recovering refrigerant. Can only be performed on a system with an operating compressor. No, none of those make sense. The only one that makes sense in this one, a system-dependent recovery process always recovers it in a non-pressurized container. So the answer for this one would be C. This question is asking you how many valves, and it's pretty simple. It will be 2 valves, one on the high side and one on the low side of the system. In operative compressor in a refrigerator, what should you do? It is helpful to heat and strike the compressor with a rubber mallet. This one is very simple. If you have any excess fittings or anything like that, you always wanna leak test it before processing with the recovery. So the answer for this one will be A. When R410A is recovered from an appliance, it should. Now, answer A and B both say can be mixed. No, you never want to mix refrigerant. You never want to do that, so those are not the answer. Answer C, needs not to be recovered. Yes, the refrigerant does need to be recovered. So the only answer for this one will be D. Should be recovered into a recovery vessel that is clearly marked, so the mixing refrigerant does not occur. For this question is asking you about safety. So safety, you always want to wear a multi-line gloves and safety glasses when recovering, when connecting or disconnecting hoses. Question number 3, and something helpful for question number 3, and something I found for taking this test many times, is whenever there is the word regulator in the answers, that will be the answer. However, especially on this question, is asking you what a nitrogen tank should be equipped with, and it will be a regulator. A very large refrigerant leak can cause suffocation because it is a very large refrigerant leak, so that's why it causes suffocation. But if you have a small refrigerant leaks, you're always basically gonna let out a little of refrigerant when you're connecting and disconnecting hoses. But why does it cause a suffocation when there's a very large refrigerant leak? It is because a refrigerant is heavier than air and displaces oxygen. Now question number 25, the last question. This question is very simple, and there's a trick I came up with that I say if you can't pronounce it, then it's probably not the answer. And it does work, that's why I say it. I'm not gonna share something with you guys if it doesn't work. So if you can't pronounce it, it's not the answer. So the only one that you can pronounce is hydrochloric and hydrofluoric acid. So that will be the answer for number 25. Next video, we're doing type 2-4 practice test number 1. Today we're gonna be doing type 2-4 practice test number 1. So let's get started. When first inspecting a hermetic system known to be leaking, you should look for frost on the tubing. No, that's not the first thing you should look for. Puddles of refrigerant, you're never gonna have like puddles of refrigerant. Particles of the filter dryer core. No, what you're gonna be looking for is trace of oil. The suction service valve, no. The one or both of the gang valves, no. And head gaskets and discharge valve, no. The answer for this one will be the rotating shaft seal. Now number 3, for any question like this that is asking you about the leak rates, I have gone over this multiple times. So in this one I put the commercial in all capital letters, just because when it's asking you about a leak rate, look for either commercial, industrial, or comfort cooling. In this case, commercial, and commercial is always gonna be 20% leak rate. Comfort cooling is gonna be 10% leak rate, and industrial is gonna be 30% leak rate. So for this question, the answer will be B, 20% leak rate. So for number 4, you repaired a leak of a supermarket with 300 pounds of or a R22. So when must a follow-up leak verification test be conducted? Now for this question, you always want to be within 10 days. So for this question, answer A, immediate. You never want to do anything immediate, especially on like the whole refrigeration cycle. You never want to do anything immediate. Now conduct a follow-up verification, no, because the verification failed and you need to repair the leak before you do that. Report the amount of refrigerant, no, you don't need to report the amount of refrigerant. The right answer for this one will be B, conduct additional repair within the next 30-day window. So when recovery is first started, at what phase do you want to recover the refrigerant to save time? So you always want to recover refrigerant as a liquid phase, and that would save you time. So for this question, where must you connect the hose in order to recover liquid refrigerant? It's kind of simple. If you want to recover liquid refrigerant, you should connect the hose in the liquid line, not the vapor line. It's kind of obvious. Recovering refrigerant in the vapor phase will of course minimize the loss of oil. So B is the answer for number 8. So for this question, you already recovered the liquid refrigerant. So after recovering the liquid, you still have refrigerant in it. It's just not liquid, it's vapor refrigerant. So of course you want to remove the refrigerant by the recovery system. How can you speed up the removal of refrigerant charge from a system? Using a smaller recovery vessel, no, that wouldn't make sense. Using a two-stage vacuum pump, that would not make sense either. Heating the recovery cylinder to raise its pressure. No, you don't want to raise the pressure, you want to lower it. So the right answer will be cooling the recovery cylinder to lower its pressure. So B will be the answer for number 10. If a hermetic compressor overheats when drawing deep vacuum, it is because the motor relies on the flow of refrigerant through the compressor for cooling. So for this answer is simple. You already have a refrigerant in the recovery equipment. So of course there's all the answers say change. You do want to change filters or any of that, but you first want to recover the remove the R22. So the only one that says that is D. So yes, if you have a refrigerant in a recovery equipment already, you wanna remove the refrigerant so you will be able to recover the other refrigerant, in this case the R410A. So for this question, keep in mind it says false. So it must be tested by EPA approved laboratory. Yes, it does need to be tested by EPA approved laboratory. Equipment designed to recover flammable refrigerant must meet specific UL safety standards. Yes. It must be equipped with low loss fittings. Yes, you do need to have low loss fittings. The answer for this one will be purchase of such equipment must be reported to the EPA. You don't need to report it to the EPA, and that will be the answer because it does say false. The other ones do make sense. That's the only one that doesn't. So that's the answer. Now for this question, you want to evacuate the isolated section of the system, and if the pressure does not rise after a few minutes, you want to remove the compressor. So for this question, like I said before, you never want to do anything immediately. So every answer in here, even though it doesn't say immediate, it's like that's what you're doing something immediate. So no, you always wanna wait. So the only answer for this one is B, and the one that does say wait is B. So that's the answer. So this question only comes up in all the 5 parts that I took. It only comes up one time, and I found a trick for this one. Of course, there's a way of finding the right answer. Going to the book, it actually tells you, but I found a trick for this one just to make it faster for you guys, and is when it says R10A, and then you go to the answer, and the answer has, so when it says R10A, you go to the answer, and there is one that says 10 inches of HG vacuum, and that is always the answer. So what I did, I mashed up the 10 with the 10 from the question with the 10 with the answer, and I tried it and I did it continuously and it worked. So that's why I'm sharing it with you guys. The other way is going to the book and finding out the right answers with the right HG vacuum and all that, depending on the pounds and the refrigerant. But just to do it fast, R10 with the 10 inches of HG vacuum. So for this question, the answer will be leak and the appliance make recovery to prescribed level unattainable. That is the only answer, and that's the only one that makes sense. Now this one is asking you about major repair. So major is like, you gotta know the major components, and it is evaporator, compressor, condenser, and metering device. the metering device and compressor change pressure and temperature, and then the evaporator absorbs heat and the condenser rejects heat. But for this one, the answer would be a replacement of the evaporator coil, because the filter dryer is not a major component. The Schrader valve core is not a major component either, and the condenser fan motor is not a major part. The condenser is, but the condenser fan motor is not a major component. So the answer will be a replacement of the evaporator coil. When is it against EPA regulation to use system-dependent recovery equipment? So system-dependent recovery equipment, you will know what is against EPA regulation by looking up the definition, and the definition is containing 15 pounds or less. And this one says 15 pounds or more of refrigerant. So the answer will be C, when the appliance containing over 15 pounds of refrigerant. Now for this one, I will put a picture up here of the refrigeration system, but basically it's asking you what is the state of refrigerant leaving the receiver of a refrigeration system. And the state of refrigerant leaving the receiver of a refrigeration system will be a high pressure liquid. On this one, you always want to charge refrigerant into a system and through the liquid. So this one is pretty simple. The only one that says liquid through the actual liquid line, that's a way of looking at it without having to think too much. Liquid through the liquid line, that will be the answer. So the answer is D. So how would you remove moisture from a refrigeration system? Again, a component that is meant to remove moisture from a refrigeration system is your filter dryer. So this question is very simple. Use a filter dryer. D. So not required. We all know for R134A it is required. For 404A is also required, and R10A is kind of the most used refrigerant. So yeah, it is required. So the only answer for this one is R17. When could a reciprocating compressor be damaged if energized? When the suction service valve is open? No. When the discharge service valve is open? No. When the demand for cooling is at a steady state? No. The answer will be when the discharge service valve is closed. So for this one, if you are in the field or you have basically read the book, you know that every time you use a nitrogen tank to pressurize a system, or you just use a nitrogen tank, you know it will need to be equipped with a pressure regulator. So the answer for this one will be requires a pressure regulator. That will be the answer for 25. And next video we are doing type 3, and we are finishing with practice test number 1, and then we're gonna start practice test number 2. So today we are doing practice test number 1, type 3, the last part for this practice test, and then we're gonna start with practice test number 2. So first question, a hydrostatic tube test kit will, remember, For most of the depending on the section you're doing, you gotta remember what section you're doing. You're doing type 3, mainly chillers. So this is gonna have basic like water. Like for leaks, is gonna have like water. So determine if a tube leaks. Blow all water out of the tube. No. Remove water from the machine. No. Bend refrigerant to atmospheric pressure. No, you never want to bend refrigerant. So like I was saying, you never want to bend any refrigerant. You never want to do that. Remove water from the machines. No. Blow all water out of the tube. No. A hydrostatic tube test kit will determine if a tube leaks. So like I said, mainly chillers, they have tubes. So a hydrostatic, which is basically hydro water, a test kit will determine if the tube leaks. Question number 2. When leak testing a low pressure centrifugal with nitrogen, what is the maximum test pressure? Now, the maximum test pressure would always be 10 psig. It will not be 0 psig. It will not be 25. It will not be 50. It will be 10 psig. Question number 3. Charged low pressure refrigeration machines may be most effectively leak checked by adding dry nitrogen to increase pressure. No, you don't want to increase the pressure. Adding refrigerant, you never want to add refrigerant into a system or into a machine. Adding heat will circulate hot water or heating blankets. Operating the purge unit to see how much air comes out. No. The answer will be adding heat with circulated hot water or heating blankets. That will be the answer. Again, type 3 low pressures, mainly chillers. So you wanna adding heat with circulated hot water or heating blankets. Number 4. What should be done to reduce refrigerant loss from the purge unit in a R123 chiller? A leak test and repair the chiller. Seal the purge unit discharge line. Pipe purge unit back into the low side. Pipe purge unit back into recovery unit. None of that really makes sense. The answer for this one will be leak test and repair the chiller. That will be the answer for number 4. Number 5. Starting in 2019, EPA regulations require that all chillers contain more than 50 pounds of ozone depleting refrigerant that are used for comfort cooling to repaired when the leak exceeds. Now, whenever you have a question like this asking you about leak rates, I have mentioned it before. Comfort cooling is always going to be 10%. Industrial is going to be 30%, and commercial is going to be 20%. So for this one, it will be B, 10% of the charge per year. That will be the leak rate for comfort cooling. You see it right here, comfort cooling. What is the best method to determine a chiller's normal charge for leak rate circulation. Determined from the maximum power consumption. No. Determined from the compressor horsepower. No. Determined from the dimension of the chiller barrels. No. Use the chart stated on the equipment's nameplate. Yes. So whenever you're working on a system, it doesn't matter if it's chiller, whatever it is, the refrigerant charge is always going to be on the nameplate. And the nameplate, if it's outside, sometimes just because of the rain and everything, it might be worn off, so you might not be able to see it. But inside, it should also have it in the air handler. So yeah, in the nameplate there will always be the charge. So number 7. Who is responsible for keeping records of all leaks, inspections, and any completed leak repair verification test? Now this is kind of simple and it's kind of obvious too. Of course, you would want, let me read the questions first, but the answer is gonna be simple, common sense. So the original installing technicians, employers, only the technician that has actually performed each inspection or verification, the owner and or operator of the equipment, the EPA leak rate assessment division. That doesn't make sense at all. So the answer for this one is, of course, the owner and or operator of the equipment. So if you work on the equipment, you're gonna keep records, and the owner might also keep records. So the owner and or operator of the equipment. Number 8. A typical setting for high pressure cut-out control on a recovery unit and used for evacuating from a low pressure chiller. Again, another tip for this one. So cut out, whenever it says cut out control on a recovery unit, so cut out is always 10 psig. So when it says cut out control, it's 10 psig. So it won't be 1 psig, it won't be 5 psig, it won't be 15 psig, it will be 10 psig. So number 9, refrigerant removal from a low pressure system starts with. So this one is common sense again. It doesn't matter what equipment you're working on. Every removal of refrigerant has to start with liquid. So the answer for this one, of course, it will be liquid removal, not vapor removal, not vapor and liquid removal, not oil separation. It will be liquid removal. Number 10. What must be done after recovering the liquid refrigerant from a low pressure chiller? So this is also a common sense question. So basically you have two types of, not types, but two I guess you can say types. Two types of refrigerant. You have vapor refrigerant and you have liquid refrigerant. So of course, in this one, if you remove the liquid refrigerant, you still have vapor refrigerant in it. So it's asking you, what should you do after you recover all the liquid refrigerant? And of course, it's gonna be recover the vapor refrigerant. Pressurize the system with nitrogen. No, that's to leak check. Separate the oil from the system. No. Soviet flush the entire system. No. It will be recover the vapor refrigerant. That makes sense because you recover the liquid refrigerant, you still have vapor refrigerant. You gotta recover the vapor refrigerant. So number 11, approximately how much refrigerant vapor is left in an average 350 ton or 123 chiller at 0 psi once all the R123 liquid has been removed? Again, the liquid is like 80% of what's in it, so you can do the math, but I will tell you right here, it's not trace amount. It's not 15 pounds, it's not 75 pounds, it's 100 pounds. So 350 ton minus the liquid refrigerant, it will be 100 pounds left of vapor refrigerant. So that will be the answer for number 11. Number 12, when evacuating a system that use severely oversized vacuum pump could cause trapped oil to freeze, cause trapped refrigerant to freeze, cause trapped water to freeze, cause the valve to freeze. So in questions like this, whenever it has whenever it's asking you like what would happen in like oversized, in this case oversized vacuum pump or what, or anything like that, and it's basically on low pressure, which is your type 3, it will only be in questions of type 3. It will always be trap water to freeze or trap liquid to freeze if you don't have a water, which is basically the same thing, but the answer is always gonna be trap water to freeze. Refrigerant to freeze, no. Trapped oil to freeze, no. Cause the valve to freeze, no. It will be trapped water to freeze. That's why you have water circulating, so the water will not freeze. Next question. After system servicing and charging, why is refrigerant vapor reintroduced to the chiller before refrigerant liquid? So this one, I basically just said this. So it will be liquid charged into a deep vacuum will evaporate and may lower the temperature, freezing water in the heat exchanger tube bundle. Again, so the vapor is reintroduced so it doesn't freeze. So that is the answer for number 13. Number 14. What should you do after reaching the required recovery vacuum on a low pressure appliances? Now, on questions like this, when it's asking you what should you do, a tip is you never want to do anything immediately. You always want to wait. Right here, it does say on answer B, wait for at least a few minutes to see if the system pressure rises before charging. You never wanna do anything immediate, so A is off. Break the vacuum, that's doing something immediate, and pressurize is also doing something immediate. You always wanna wait a few minutes for anything that you're basically doing. For pressures to regulate, for anything to get the right reading, you gotta wait. So number 15, which of the following actions would always be considered major under EPA regulation? So major, again, you gotta think of the four major components, which are evaporator, condenser, metering device, and compressor. The compressor and metering device are the ones that change the lowers and the ones that lowers pressure and temperature, and the evaporator absorbs the heat, and the condenser rejects the heat. That's why when you put your hand over the condenser outside your house, you feel hot air because it's rejecting the heat, it's pushing it out. So the answer for this one, replacement of an evaporator coil. It wouldn't be replacement of a filter dryer because that is not a major component. Of a replacement of a switch is not a major component either, and replacement of the purge unit is not a major component. It will be replacement of the evaporator coil. Number 16. When should an appliance not be evacuated all the way to prescribed level? A tip for this one, it says prescribed, so in the answer it says prescribed too. So the only one that says that is when leak and the appliance makes evacuation to the prescribed level unattainable. So that will be the answer, and that's a trick that I found out from doing this continuously, so that's why I'm sharing it with you guys. I wouldn't share something that doesn't really work. Number 17. Which of the following statement is true of recycling and recovering equipment? It must be tested by ASHRAE approved third party. It must be equipped with low loss valves and flare fittings. It must be able to handle more than one refrigerant. It must be labeled and certified to meet EPA regulation. So let's read the question again. Which of the following statement is true of recycling and recovering equipment? So the answer for this one is it must be labeled. We gotta have a label as certified to meet EPA requirements. So that's what has to be done. So it must be labeled and must be certified to meet EPA requirements. So number 18, which of the following methods can be used to pressurize an or 1233 CD system for the purpose of opening the system for a non-major repair? Non-major repair, you gotta read it. You gotta read that word. So adding nitrogen to the system, warming the liquid refrigerant in the system, adding compressed air to. You never want to add compressed air to a system. It would basically fucking explode. So you never want to add a compressed air to a system. Adding carbon dioxide to the system's condenser and evaporator. You never want to do that either. So warming the liquid refrigerant in the system, that will be the answer. Number 19. How long must a technician evacuating refrigerant from an appliance with a full charge of more than 5 pounds and 5 pounds or less than 50 pounds that are being disposed of, or keep records of the event? So the answer for this one, for number 19, that it will not be 1 year, it will not be 5 years, it will not be 3 years. You gotta keep record for a total of 3 years. Number 20. What is the primary purpose of a press unit in a low pressure chiller? So the press unit does one thing. It doesn't really matter like what it does in a chiller or a regular condenser. It's still the same thing. It removes refrigerant from the system. No, the press unit does not remove refrigerant from the system. It condenses air out of the system, condense water out of the system. No. Remove non-condensable from the system. Yes. Remove non-condensable from the system. That is what the press unit is meant to do. Number 21. Where does the press unit on a centrifugal system take its suction? Top of the condenser, compressor oil, sump, top of the evaporator, suction elbow. So we know where the press unit is located, and if you don't, I'll put a picture up here of the whole, like where it has the press unit, where it's meant to be and all that. But the press unit is the top of the condenser. R123 at 1.7 psi will boil at approximately. So again, in the book, you can go in the book and find out like the right answer and everything, and I do have the book around here somewhere, but just so you'll know the answer, the answer will be 82 Fahrenheit, not 90, not 78, and not 74. Now I could go in the book and show you how to find out the answer. I don't know where my book is at right now, where I put it. That is the answer, and so you'll know the answer already. So yeah. Where does refrigerant go after it leaves the press unit on a low pressure centrifugal system? It goes to the evaporator, the condenser, the compressor, and intercooler, the recovery service vessel. For 23, the answer will be the press unit. Again, is a in the refrigeration system. I'll put it up here again. Is it goes from the press unit, it goes to the evaporator. So ASHRAE Standard 15 2013 requires the use of a room sensor and alarms to detect a high level of ozone. No, doesn't make sense. A refrigerant contamination. No. Excessive oxygen levels. No. So excessive oxygen level, that will be stupid, because every room is gonna have oxygen. You need oxygen. So in here, the EPA is all about refrigerant, right? So it's kind of simple. Refrigerant leaks. An alarm sensor is there for refrigerant leaks. ASHRAE Standard 2013 requires the use of room sensor and alarm to detect A1 refrigerants, B2 refrigerants, A2 refrigerants, or all refrigerant safety groups. Again, we're talking about refrigerants, and this is basically gonna be for all refrigerants. So the right answer for this one will be all refrigerant safety groups. So that will be for type 3. Next video, we're gonna start on the core for practice test number 2. Peace. I'm gonna be doing the core for practice test number 2. So let's get started. Which type of refrigerant typically has the lowest global warming potential? Now, lowest global warming potential is basically it doesn't have chlorine. And in here, HCFCs, you can see HCFC is hydrogen, chlorine, fluorine, and carbon. It does have chlorine in it. HFCs on C, it doesn't have chlorine, but it has carbon, so it is harmful or equal. Not really, all of them are not equal. It will be HFOs with HFOs, which does not have chlorine at all. Question number 2. How does global warming potential of R410A compare to carbon dioxide? Now, it's asking you for a comparison. Of course, this will be in the EPA book that you will be getting, and if you don't have it, I'll put it up on the screen. That EPA book that you study will have all the answers and all the information will be in there. But to not waste your time, the answer for this one will be it is 1,000 times greater. D will be the answer for number 2. Number 3. How do global warming potential of isobutane, R600A propane, R290, HFCs 134A, R404A, and R410A. Now, how do they compare to the global warming of HFCs 134, 404, and R410A? The answer for this one will be B. They are significantly lower. Now, again, you can, in the book, it will literally tell you how to, you'll find out how to find the answer in the book. But just to make it easier for you guys, faster, the answer for this will be they are significantly lower. That will be the answer for number 3. Now, number 4. What is the state of refrigerant entering the compressor of a refrigeration cycle? Now, the state of refrigerant entering the compressor, you never want to have a liquid enter the compressor. You always want to have entering the compressor, you always want to have vapor. You never want to have liquid. So low pressure liquid, that's no, you don't. It has liquid. High pressure liquid, it can't have liquid in it. So no, it can't have liquid entering it. So the other one, low pressure vapor or high pressure vapor. The answer for number 4 will be low pressure vapor. You always want to have a vapor entering the compressor, and it has to be low pressure. Question number 5. Which type of lubricant or HFO refrigerants or which type of lubricants or HFO refrigerants are miscible in? Now, the answer for this one will be B. Poly lubricants, AB lubricants, mineral lubricants, or all refrigerant lubricants. No, those do not make sense. It will be POE lubricant. Which of the following gases help form the Earth protective shield? That will be, it's the stratospheric ozone. So, of course, that's the answer. Carbon dioxide, that does not make sense. Radon does not make sense. And methane does not make sense. That it will be a stratospheric ozone. What does ozone depletion potential or ODP measure? Ozone depletion potential or ODP measures the ability of a substance to destroy ozone in the stratosphere. It will not be the rating of health hazard caused by ozone depletion. It will not be the length of time a refrigerant stays in the atmosphere, and it will not be the ability of substance that causes global warming. It will be the ability of a substance to destroy ozone in the stratosphere. That will be the answer for number 7. Now, for number 8, it says, which of the following refrigerant has an ozone depletion potential of more than 0? The answer for number 8 will be C, R123 and R22. Those are the ozone depletion potential of more than 0. Those have ozone depletion potential, which is basically chlorine. It contains a lot of chlorine. So HFC, next, HFC refrigerants contain which of the following? HCFCs, I'm sorry, basically go down the line. H is hydrogen, C is chlorine, F is fluorine, and C is carbon. So the answer for this one will be C, hydrogen, chlorine, fluorine, and carbon. What must be done before disposing of any appliance containing a CFC, HCFC, or HFC refrigerant? Recover the refrigerant, purge the appliance with nitrogen, flush the appliance with R134A, seal the appliance so no refrigerant can escape. So the answer for number 9. So basically you have refrigerant already, so it's kind of simple. What you want to do, first thing you want to do, if you have refrigerant already and you want to dispose of the appliance, you gotta recover the refrigerant. You can't just dispose of it without recovering. 11. A major system repair is being performed on an R22 appliance. What cannot be done to recharge the appliance? Add R22 after the repair is complete. Retrofit the unit to R407C. Use recovered or recycled R22 on the same owner. Top off the unit with R410A. So what cannot be done? That will be top off the unit with R410A. That will be the answer for number 11. Number 12. CFCs, HESCs, and HFCs have which of the following in carbon? They deplete the stratospheric ozone layer. They contain chlorine. They must be recovered before opening or disposing of the appliance. They have the same saturation temperature at 70 degrees Fahrenheit. So the answer for number 12, it will be they must be recovered before opening or disposing of appliance. Basically, you gotta recover every type of refrigerant. We just went over this, but yeah, if you wanna open a system or dispose of it or anything like that, you always wanna recover the refrigerant. You can't do it without recovering it. Under EPA regulations, what standards must be reclaimed refrigerant meet before it can be resold? Now, reclaimed, so before it can be resold, it needs to meet not the EPA 700, not ASHRAE 700, not UL 700. It needs to be the AHRI 700. That's the regulation that it needs to meet before it can be resold. Number 14. Which of the following appliance is not covered by EPA Section 608 regulation? Freezers, it is covered. Freezers are covered by 608 regulations. Air conditioning and refrigerant equipment, yes, that's also covered. Commercial refrigeration equipment, it gotta be covered. So the only one in here that makes sense is dehumidifiers. That will be the answer. D will be the answer for number 14. Number 15. EPA does not require technicians or the company employing the technician to keep which of the following records when disposing of an appliance with 5 to 50 pounds of refrigerant. The model and serial number of the appliance, the type of refrigerant recovered, the quality of refrigerant by type recovered from this disposed appliance in each calendar month, the quality of refrigerant by type sent for reclamation or destruction. So the answer for number 15 will be A, the model and serial number of the appliance. Number 16. What synthetic lubricant is presently used with ternary blends containing HCFCs, benzene. Okay, so in this one is what synthetic lubricant is presently used with blends containing HCFCs. Now for this one, glycol oil, ester oil, and castor oil are basically all the same. So it's a trick I learned. So it's kind of common sense. If they're all the same, neither of them is gonna be the answer. So the one that's not the same is alkyl benzene or benzene or however you say it. But no, A will be the answer for number 16. Number 17. How do refrigerant blends leak from a system? At a faster rate. Okay, so refrigerant blends are basically different temperature and different pressure, because it's blends. So leaking from a system, they will leak at an uneven rate. So I think it's in here. Yeah, they will leak at an uneven rate due to the different vapor pressures. So there you have it. So number 18. In which component of a system does the refrigerant change from a high pressure vapor to a high pressure liquid? The answer for number 18, which you should know, that is changed from a high pressure vapor to a high pressure liquid, that will be the condenser. It wouldn't be the receiver, it wouldn't be the metering device, and it wouldn't be the accumulator. It will be the condenser. That's the one that changes high pressure vapor to high pressure liquid. Number 19. Which process applies to cleaning refrigerant? Okay. And this one, there's a trick. So every time when it says cleaning refrigerant in any questions that you get, the process of cleaning refrigerant is always gonna be recycling. So cleaning refrigerant, you just read that word, it's always recycling. The process of cleaning is recycling. So that's the answer for number 19. Number 20. What gas should be used to leak check a system designed for use with R-410A that has been open for a major system repair? Now, okay, I'm not gonna do that right now. There's probably a question coming to that, but you do need to know a major system repair, the major components, which are basically your condenser, your compressor, your metering device, and your evaporator. So condenser, evaporator, metering device, and your compressor. So those are the 4 major components. But this one wasn't talking about that. I thought it was, but it's not. So a gas that is used to leak check. So leak check, that's another one. Leak check or pressurize, whenever it's asking for any of that, it will always be pressurized nitrogen. That's the only gas that you can use to leak check a system or pressurize a system. So that will be the answer for 20. It will be C. 21. What is important? Why is it important not to mix different refrigerants in the same container when recovering refrigerant? This is kind of obvious. Different refrigerants have different pressures and temperatures, so the mixture may be impossible to reclaim. So that would be the answer right there. The mixture would explode. No, it wouldn't necessarily explode. The mixture would just be impossible to reclaim. The refrigerant mixture is toxic. It is a violation of the SNAP regulation. No, it would just be impossible to reclaim. Over evacuating a system. So over evacuating a system does not occur. That's the answer right there. Like over evacuating, we don't talk about it in the school because over evacuating does not occur at all. According to ASHRAE Refrigerant Safety Classification Standard, which of the following designation would be the safest? So, and this one is the safest. I will actually put a picture right here so you can qualify, but you can classify it, but in your book it does have it. I will just put a picture right here so you can see it. But for 21 it will be, for 23, I'm sorry, for 23 that will be A1. 24. Why should care be used not to overfill refrigerant storage cylinder? So 24. Why should care be used not to overfill refrigerant storage cylinder? It's kind of obvious. You just want to fill it up to 80%, only 80%. You never want to go above 80%. The cylinder may be too heavy to lift. The initial pressure of the cylinder may rise in heating areas and cause an explosion. Some refrigerant may be vented when closing the valve. The excess space may be needed for refrigerant from the next job. So the answer for this one would be B. The initial pressure of the refrigerant may rise in heated areas and cause an explosion. So that's why you never want to overfill it over 80%. The Department of Transportation regulations require which parameter to be recorded on the shipping paper for hazard class 2.2 non-flammable compressed gases. So for this one would not be weight of the cylinder. It will not be total cubic feet of each gas. It will not be total weight of all cylinders. It will be number of cylinders of each gas. Number of cylinder of each gas. That will be the answer for number 25. And that is it. Next video we're gonna start with type 1, and then we're gonna do type 2 and type 3 on the following videos. And then I'm gonna put a video all together for you to watch the complete part 2. We're gonna be doing a type 1 for part 2 practice test for your EPA. And I know it has been a very long time. I really haven't had time to do any of these videos, but today we're gonna be doing type 1 for part 2 practice test. So first question, and this question is gonna come in every practice test. Like, it's gonna be in there because this is one. If you focus on type 1, this is one of the questions that's gonna come up, which is basically the definition of type 1 appliances. So it says, which of the followings are included in EPA's definition of a small appliance? So the definition of a small appliance, we got here a product fully manufactured, charged, and hermetically sealed in a factory. Product having 15 pounds or less of refrigerant. That could be a very good answer, but not completely. Product with compressor under a 1/2 horsepower. Fully charged components ready for installation in split systems. So the answer for this one will be A, product fully manufactured, charged, and hermetically sealed at a factory. Question number 2. It says, which of the following is an approved substitute refrigerant for new household refrigerator freezers and combinations refrigerator freezers? So the one that could be a substitute, an approved substitute refrigerant, will be R600A. That's the one that is going to be used for refrigerators and freezers and basically small appliances. Again, focus on type 1. You're doing small appliances, a high pressure. So yeah, we do have R1 1234YF. No, that wouldn't be it. Or 1234CD wouldn't be it either. Or R170. That would not be it either. It will be R600A. That will be the answer for number 2. Number 3. Which hydrocarbon refrigerant is approved to retrofit into existing household refrigerators? Now, the answer for this one, HCR600A, 2 ounces or less. Blended HCR441A, HCR290, 1 pound or less. And a D, which will be the answer, it will be hydrocarbons are not approved for retrofit appliances. That will be applications. I'm sorry. That will be the answer for number 3. Recovery device for use with small appliances containing CFCs, HCFCs, and HFCs must HCFCs and HFCs must meet which of the following requirements? So in this one, small appliance, just remember an operate for this one. A tip for this one, and when it has an operating compressor, it will be 90% and 4-inch vacuum. When is an inoperated compressor, it will be 80% and 4-inch vacuum. So let's read the answers. Recovery 90% of the refrigerant when the compressor is operating. Thus, the keyword is operating. 90% you recover, or achieve a 4-inch vacuum under conditions of ASHRAE 740. That would be a good answer. Recovering 80% of the refrigerant when the compressor is operating. Again, when it's operating, you gotta recover 90%, not 80, so that's not the answer. Recovering 95, we already know that's not gonna be the answer because you never recovered 95. And the last one, recovering 75, that would not be the answer either. So the answer for this one would be A, recovering 90% of the refrigerant when the compressor is operating and achieve a 4-inch vacuum, or achieve a 4-inch vacuum under the conditions of ASHRAE 740. Who must certify recovery equipment used during a maintenance, service, or repair of small appliance that uses CFCs, HCFCs, and HFCs? So for number 5, an ASHRAE approved laboratory recovery equipment for small appliance does not require approval. An ASHRAE 740 standard laboratory, an EPA approved laboratory. An EPA approved laboratory will be the answer for this question. Number 6, equipment which is used to recover CFCs, HCFCs, and HFC refrigerant from small appliances for the purpose of disposal must meet which standard? Recover 95% of the refrigerant whether or not the compressor is operative. Recover 80% of the refrigerant with an inoperative compressor, and 90% of the refrigerant with an operative compressor. Again, when it's inoperative, it's 80%. When it's operative, it's 90%. So that is a very good answer. It has both 80% when it's not operating, 90% when it's operating. So that will be a very good answer. The next one, it says recover 90% of the refrigerant when with an inoperative compressor. Is inoperative, so it should be 80, not 90. So that is not the answer. Recover 75% of the refrigerant. We know you do not recover 75% of the refrigerant. So the answer for this one will be B. Recover 80% when it's not operating, 90% when it's operating. The sale of CFC, HCFCs, and the sale of CFC, HCFCs, HFC, and HFOs refrigerant to service or install refrigeration and air conditioning equipment is banned from use unless you have a recovery machine. Limited by law to HVAC contractors and or mechanical engineers. No. Allowed only if there is proof of need. No. Restricted to technicians who are EPA certified in refrigerant recovery. Yes, that will be the answer. It is restricted to technicians who are EPA certified in refrigerant recovery. That is why you're getting the EPA. That is why this test is for. So you can be able to purchase refrigerant and sell refrigerant and just handle refrigerant. So D will be the answer for that answer. When servicing a small appliance found to be leaking, it is mandatory to repair the leak within 30 days. Again, if you have a small leak, it's not mandatory to repair it. It is necessary to repair it once it's found, or so it is needed to repair it, but it's not mandatory to repair it. So mandatory to repair the leak only when no, it's not mandatory to repair. Again, not mandatory to repair the leak, but it is recommended to do so whenever possible. Mandatory, no, we know it's not mandatory. So the answer for this one will be C, not mandatory to repair the leak, but it is recommended to do so whenever possible. 9. Which of the following best describes low loss fittings on refrigerant recovery devices used to recover? CFCs, HFCs, and HFCs. They can be either manually closed or automatically closed when disconnected to prevent loss of refrigerant from hoses. They are used to connect the recovery device to an appliance and leak only small amounts of refrigerant during use. It could be a very good answer. They are used to connect the recovery device to an appliance and must be discharged after each use. They eliminate the loss during recovery. So for this one, the answer will be they can be either manually closed or automatically. They can either be manually closed or automatically closed when disconnected to prevent loss of refrigerant from hoses. Which of the following refrigerant is very high pressure, and generally does not need to be recovered? So a refrigerant that's high pressure and does not need to be recovered, we do know R22 needs to be recovered because is flat is dangerous to the environment. R134A does need to be recovered either too, and R404A does need to be recovered. The one that does not need to be recovered because it's not dangerous is R744 refrigerant. So D will be the answer for this question. Next question. What should a technician do if the refrigerant in a recovery center is suspected to be contaminated? Turn refrigerant in for reclamation, weigh the cylinder, discharge the refrigerant, dilute the refrigerant with virgin refrigerant. So if it's suspected to be contaminated, you need to turn refrigerant in for reclamation. So the next question, if a reclamation facility now is suspected to be contaminated, so you turn it into a reclamation facility. Now it says, if a reclamation facility receives a tank mixed with refrigerant, there's two things that they can do. They can refuse to take the refrigerant, and they can charge extra if they take the refrigerant. So I believe, yeah, A is the answer. Refuse to accept the refrigerant or charge extra for processing it. We're not gonna read the other ones because the other ones don't apply here. They don't make sense. The system-dependent passive recovery process never needs the use of a pump or heat to recover refrigerant must use a pressure release device to prevent the technician and to protect the technician and equipment. Recovery refrigerant in a non-pressurized container can only be performed on a system with an operative compressor. So the answer for this one would be C. Recover refrigerant in a non-pressurized container. When installing any type of access fitting onto a sealed system, the fitting should be leak tested before processing with recovery. It is not necessary to leak test an access fitting. The fitting needs not to be leak tested until the total repair is completed. The system must be pressurized with dry nitrogen before leak testing can be attempted. So now, if you have a fitting that you put it on a system that you are installing into a system, you need to leak test the fittings before anything else. So the answer will be A. The fitting should be leak tested before processing with recovery. Yes, that will be the answer for D. A standard vacuum pump designed specifically for evacuating and dehydrating can be used alone as a self-contained active recovery. Never be used as a recovery device in contamination with pressurized container. Be used alone as a substitute for any recovery device. Be used alone as a system-dependent passive recovery. So the answer for number 15 would be B. Never be used as a recovery device in contamination with a pressurized container. Number 16. How many access valves are needed to recover the refrigerant on a sealed system with an operating compressor that has a completely restricted capillary tube? So if it has a completely restricted capillary tube, you need both valves. So the answer for this one will be 2 valves, one on the high side and one on the low side of the system. Only one access valve? No. Only one access valve? No. You need 2 valves, one on the high side and one on the low side. 17. What may be done to speed the recovery process and ensure that all CFC, HGFCs, or HFC refrigerant has been removed from an frost-free refrigerator? So a tip for this one, when you read the word frost-free, so you won't have to read the whole question, you just read frost-free, turn on the defrost heater. So frost-free, turn on the defrost heater. You see all the other, I'm gonna go over the answers. So cool the compressor to force liquid out of the high side. Heat the recovery cylinder to vaporize the liquid refrigerant. Turn on the defrost heater to increase the refrigerant temperature and vaporize the liquid. Pack ice around the evaporator to ensure minimum liquid is available. So again, frost-free, turn on the defrost heater. Number 18. Which of the following is required when attaching a gauge set to check system pressure? Release a small amount of refrigerant to check for contamination. Have manual or self-sealing valves on the ends of your gauge set to minimize any release of refrigerant. recover refrigerant and recharge to specifications even if no repair is needed. Use hoses that are at least at that are 3 feet or longer. So no, the answer for number 18 will be B. Have manual or self-sealing valves on the ends of your gauge set hoses to minimize any release of refrigerant. What must be done to the refrigerant that is vented off the top of the filling? What must be done to the refrigerant that is vented off the top when filling a charging cylinder? The refrigerant needs not to be recovered. The refrigerant must be recovered only if it's a CFC or HCFC. Again, all refrigerant needs to be recovered. It is refrigerant, it is harmful, so it does need to be recovered. The refrigerant must be recovered if it is CFC, HFC, and HF. If it's HCFC or HFCs, the refrigerant must be reclaimed or incinerated. So the answer for number 19 will be C. The refrigerant must be recovered if it is CFC, HCFC, or HFC. If it's HFO, it's not really harmful to the environment, so it does not need to be recovered. Why should the technician watch for signs of contamination in the oil when recovering refrigerant from a system that experience a compressor burnout? Contaminants cannot be removed from the refrigerant, and the refrigerant will have to be destroyed by the reclamation center. The system will have to be flushed if contaminants are presented. The contaminants will eat away at the recovery equipment. The contaminants will plug up the recovery equipment. So the answer for number 20 will be B. The the system will have to be flushed if contaminants are present. Why should low and high side access valve be installed when recovering refrigerant from a household refrigerator? So if you have high side and low side installed, it is kind of simple, is to improve speed of recovery. The other ones don't really make sense, to prevent non-condensable contaminations, to prevent to protect the recovery machine, to prevent oil migration. No, it's to improve the speed of recovery. 22. Which of the following are recommended safe work practice when recovering refrigerant? Now, safe one, a tip for this one, if it has the word safe or safety, it is safe work practice, so it is gonna be the answer. Wear safety eyewear and bulky line gloves when connecting and disconnecting hoses. Wear a respiratory. You don't need to wear a respiratory. Wear cutting gloves. You don't need to wear that. Ventilation is only necessary if oil appears. You don't need that. So wear safety eyewear and bulky line gloves when connecting and disconnecting hoses. That is gonna be the answer. 23. When using nitrogen to repair a sealed refrigeration system, what should the nitrogen tank always be equipped with. So you go on the field, you're gonna see a nitrogen tank. You're always gonna use a nitrogen tank to leak check the system, but the nitrogen tank always needs to come with a regulator so you can read the pressure and everything. So regulator is the answer right there. Float sensor, no. Red top, no. Hand valve, no. It will be a regulator. A very large refrigerant leak can cause suffocation because refrigerant smells strong and make breathing difficult, are lighter than air and can cause dizziness, or heavier than air and displace oxygen, sting the nose and cause sneezing. No, the answer is gonna be are heavier than air and displace oxygen. What can CFC, HFC refrigerant decompose into a high temperature, open flame glowing metal surface? For this one, a tip that I have is gonna be if that I say in class, and you do read these words a lot in the book that you get about this test and all that. But a tip that I have for this one is if you can read it, that's the answer. So most of the words in here you won't be able to read it, but the answer is just gonna be hydrochloric and hydrofluoric acids. That's gonna be the answer. And today we are gonna be doing type 2 for practice test number 2. So let's begin. First question: which part of a belt-driven non-hermetic compressor is most likely to leak if compressor has been used for several months? Now it is a non-hermetic compressor, so it wouldn't be the suction service valve, the head gaskets on, or discharge service discharge side. It wouldn't be it either, or one or both of the king valves. That wouldn't be it. What is the answer for this one? It's gonna be the rotating shaft seal. So the rotating shaft seal will be the actual answer for this one. Number 2: which of the following is an indicator of a leak in a high pressure system with a capillary tube? Now, a trick for this one that it will come up on the test. You will have it like once on your test, but just a trick. A key word is indicator of a leak. So once you have indicator of a leak, it is always gonna be excessive superheat. So indicator of leak, excessive superheat. So you won't have to read the whole question. You just see indicator of a leak, you know it's gonna be excessive superheat. Number 3: starting in 2019, what leak rate triggers the EPA requirement that commercial refrigeration system comparing 15 pounds or more of R22 to repair? Now, again, a trick for this one. It is a lot of words, a lot of stuff to read. R22, a lot of stuff to remember. So in this one, leak rates. So commercial is always gonna be 20%. So just a trick. Comfort cooling is gonna be 10%. Commercial is gonna be 20%, and industrial is gonna be 30%. And that is for your leak rate. So just remember those three: commercial 10%, industrial 30%, comfort cooling it is 20%. No, comfort cooling is 10%, my bad. Commercial is 20% and industrial is 30%. Number 4, after a leak repair of a supermarket supermarket rack using 300 pounds of R22 and a successful initial verification test, when must a follow-up leak verification test be conducted? Now, R22, that is that's medium pressure, almost low pressure, so that will be necessary, and it's 300 pounds, which is a lot of pounds. So it wouldn't be 30 days. It wouldn't be the next day either, because that's too, no, you gotta let it settle and all that. It wouldn't be on the same day because it's kind of pointless, but it will be in 10 days. So just make sure it won't be 30 days, because 30 days you have more time, which is something that is not as harmful. But when it's more immediate, it wouldn't be the next or in the same day, but it will be as fast as possible, which is like 10 days. So that will be the answer for number 4. Number 5, which of the following is not required in order to manufacture an appliance using an extending the leak repair deadline? Shut down the appliance temporarily? No. Remove the refrigerant from the isolated section of the component? No. Remove the appliance and store it in a warehouse at a facility? Recover refrigerant from the appliance to a least atmospheric pressure. So the answer for number 5 will be remove the appliance and store it in a warehouse at a facility. That will be the answer for number 5. Number 6, where must you connect a hose in order to recover liquid refrigerant? Now this one is kind of simple, it's just common sense. So if you want to recover liquid refrigerant, of course you gotta connect the hoses in the liquid line, not the condenser inlet, not the compressor discharge valve, and not the compressor suction valve. That will be in the liquid line. You want to recover liquid refrigerant, you connect it to the liquid line. Number 7, your recovery recycling machine has R22 refrigerant in it. So it has one type of refrigerant already in the recovery machine. You now have to recover refrigerant from an R410A unit. What must be done? Change the recovery cylinder on the recovery machine. Change the expansion valve on the recovery machine. No. Change the filter and expansion valve on the recovery machine. Remove the R22 from the unit and change the filter. So we already know the recovery machine has R22 in it, so of course you want to remove that R22, and you also want to change the filter. So D will be the answer for number 7. Number 8. What is the primary water source for a water-cooled recovery unit condensing coil? Chilled water from the evaporator, condenser water, local municipal water supply, and a deionized water. So this one will be local municipal water supply. Is basically a water hose. So that will be the main water supply. A local municipal water supply. So the answer will be C. Number 9. Why do gauge set hoses used for field service work have self-sealing connectors and or hand valves? To minimize the chance of explosion, to prevent vapor lock during vapor transfer to recovery cylinder. Now, to minimize a refrigerant release when hoses are connected and disconnected, to prevent a vapor lock during liquid transfer to a recovery cylinder. No. So the only one that makes sense in this one will be to minimize refrigerant release when hoses are connected or disconnected. So that will be the answer, because that's what they are used for. Like self-sealing connectors and or hand valves, they're used for not releasing a lot of refrigerant when you connect hoses or disconnect your hoses. So number 10, what steps should be taken before using a recovery unit to remove a charge? The refrigerant should be tested from acid. The recovery unit should be purged with nitrogen. The oil of the recovery unit should be changed and the recovery cylinder evacuated. The service valve position and recovery oil level should be checked when applicable. So the answer for number the answer for number 10 is service valve position and recovery oil level should be checked when applicable. So when you always use a recovery unit, you always want to check the level of the recovery. You always want to check it when you need to check it. If you see something wrong and it's mainly because of the oil, you want to check your oil level on the recovery unit. So number 11, when should refrigerant be removed from the condenser outlet? When the condenser is below the receiver, when the condenser is on the roof, when the condenser is inoperative, when the evaporator has a small leak. So when should refrigerant be removed from the condenser outlet? It will be when the condenser is below the receiver. That will be the answer for number 11. So for number 12, how long must an HVAC service company keep records for each disposable appliance with a charge between 5 to 50 pounds? 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, or 10 years? The answer will be 3 years. You need to keep records for at least 3 years. Which of the following statement about recycling and recovery equipment used for a stationary refrigerant is false? False. False. It must be tested by an EPA approved third party. Purchase of such equipment must be reported to the EPA. You don't have to report it to the EPA. When you purchase it, it must be equipped with low loss fittings. Equipment designed to recover flammable refrigerant must meet specific UL safety standards. The answer for number 13, which it says false, that is the keyword, is purchase of such equipment must be reported to the EPA. Number 14, you are changing out the compressor of an LFA system containing 40 pounds of R4 or 4A. In addition to isolating the compressor, which of the following procedures should you follow? Simply remove the compressor and cup the end. Evacuate the isolated section of the system to atmospheric pressure, then remove the compressor, evacuate the isolated section of the system to 0 psi, and if system pressure does not rise after a few minutes, remove the compressor. So the answer for this one will be C. You always wanna evacuate. You always wanna wait a few minutes, and if the temperature or pressure does not, you don't get it to where you want it, you'll wanna remove the compressor. So you always wanna wait a few minutes before you do anything. That will be the answer for number 14. Number 15. What should be done after reaching the required recovery vacuum on the appliance? Immediately disconnect the recycling or recovery equipment and open the system for service. Wait at least a few minutes to see if the system pressure rises. Break the vacuum with nitrogen and open the system for service. Pressurize the system and with nitrogen and perform a leak check. So after a few minutes of your vacuum and everything, of course, like I said, you always want to wait a few minutes to see if the pressure rises or lowers or whatever. If anything changes, that's why you always want to wait a few minutes. So the answer for number 15 will be B. For making a major repair, technicians must evacuate an appliance or component containing more than 200 pounds of R410A to which of the following level? This one, when it says 200 pounds, of course you can look at it in the book. In the book, it will have all the answers, especially in the, I believe 410A is in the back, and you just look for the pounds and the refrigerant and you mash it up and you will get the inches. But this one, what I did and how I know it works, because I kept on doing it over and over and I kept on getting the same answer. So once you see 200 pounds and then R410A, I matched the 10 with the 10 in the answer, so 10 inches of HG vacuum. That will be the answer for number 16. Number 17. When can appliances containing refrigerant be recovered to atmospheric pressure? For major repairs such as replacing the compressor, condenser, or evaporator, the repair is followed by an evacuation of the appliance to the environment. Leak in the appliance make recovery to the prescribed level unattainable. The appliance is being disposed of and recycled. So the answer for this one will be leak in the appliance make recovery to the prescribed level unattainable. So of course, when an appliance containing refrigerant be recovered to atmospheric pressure, it will be when the prescribed level is unattainable. That's the only reason why you would do it. So in number 18, it says, what is the component directly following the condenser in the refrigeration system using a thermal expansion valve? So I'll put a picture above, but the component following that condenser of the refrigeration system will be the receiver. That will be the answer for number 18. Number 19, which when is set against EPA regulation to use self-dependent recovery equipment. So when is it against? When the compressor of the appliance is inoperative. My dog just woke up. Sorry, my dog has just walked in. So yeah, when the compressor of the appliance is is operational when the ambient temperature is over 105 Fahrenheit, when the appliance containing over 15 pounds of refrigerant, when the appliance is leaking. So again, when the appliance is containing over 15 pounds of refrigerant, so that is against EPA regulation because it's 15 pounds or less. That you can use a self-dependent recovery equipment. It's 15 pounds or less, not 15 pounds over. On number, C says when the appliance containing over 15 pounds of refrigerant. So that will be the answer because it says when it's against. So number 20. Which of the following is a reason to take an oil sample? So a reason to take an oil sample. So most of the oil is concentrated on the compressor. So so you put the compressor and oil, and you got the answer right there. Basically, the unit has had a compressor burnout. That's the reason why you will take an oil sample. So what can happen when using a large vacuum pump to evacuate a system? Again, a large vacuum pump will cause something to freeze, but in here it says trap oil to freeze. Trap oil can freeze. No, trap refrigerant can freeze. So it does have refrigerant going over it and going through it, but that will not be the answer. Water in a system can freeze. The valve seats on seats can freeze. So again, well, not again, but whenever you have a question like this, like cause something to freeze, it will always be water. It won't be refrigerant. It won't be it will be water or cause liquid, or but it will be water, like water based. It won't be refrigerant. It won't be anything else. It will be water. So number 22. So number 22 is asking us liquid charging of an R410A refrigeration system with risk of freezing is begun by vapor from a vacuum level to a pressure of approximately, again, in the back of the book you will find the answer for this, but I will just tell you the answer for this would not be 32 psig, would not be 60, is 63 psig, and it would not be 90 psig. It will be 110 psig. That will be the answer for number 22. And again, it won't give you the exact psig going off 0. So 0 will equals 14.7 psig. So just go off that. So whatever, let's say R410A, and you look at the psig, just whatever psig you get, just make sure to have 14.7 and you will get the answer that you're looking for. And sometimes you won't get the exact answer, just get the one that's closest to it. So for what refrigerant is an equipment room.
This is an urgent warning. Do you have investments in the stock market? Listen up. The SEC plans to eliminate
a refrigerant detector. For what refrigerant is an equipment room refrigerant detector not required under ASHRAE standard 15 provided by the mechanical ventilation system in the machinery, and the machinery is run consistently. So The one that's gonna be here is gonna be an accept refrigerant, which is gonna be R717. That will be the answer for 23. R717. Number 24. When could a reciprocating compressor be damaged if energized? So when a reciprocating compressor be damaged if energized is if something is left closed. So let's go through the answers. When the discharge service valve is closed, when the suction service valve is open, nope. When the discharge service valve is open, nope. When the damage of the cooling is at a steady state. No. The answer for this one will be A, when the discharge service valve is open. Is closed. So number 25. And then we're gonna start with type 3 and finish part 2. Every refrigerant system must be protected by which of the following? A pressure release valve, a properly located stop valve, low pressure controls, a refrigerant condenser, a refrigerant receiver. So to protect the system, every system must be equipped with a pressure release device. We are back, and today we're gonna be going over practice test number 2, type 3. Now the first questions for type 3 is, on low pressure chillers, moisture most frequently enters the refrigeration system through A. Air leaks in the rupture disc assembly, tube leaks in the evaporator, leaks from areas with gaskets or fittings, leaks from charging service valve. Now this one we have gone over it. It's been in other parts of this reviews that I do. And the answer for this will be leaks from areas with gaskets and gaskets or fittings. Number 2. What precautions should be taken prior to recovering refrigerant from a chiller suspected to be of having tube leaks? Drain the water side of the evaporator and condenser. Run circulating pumps. Be certain the press unit is operating. Or open the condenser vent. Now, once you're doing the test, you gotta remember we are doing a type 3, so always remember what you are working with. So type 1, core, that will be basic, the laws and regulations. Type 1 will be high pressure, type 2 will be medium pressure, type 3 will be low pressure. So the answer for this one will be A. Since we're talking about chiller, drain the water side of the evaporator and condenser. Number 3. Continuous excessive moisture collection in the purge unit of a low pressure, again low pressure, type 3 refrigeration system could indicate what condition? The system was charged with contaminated refrigerant. The condenser or chiller barrel tubes are leaking. The purge unit is not operating properly. The purge adjustment is not set properly. Now the answer for this one will be the condenser or chiller barrels are leaking. So chiller have barrels, so that is probably why you have excessive moisture collection in the purge unit of a low pressure refrigeration system. Number 4. Which component is particularly susceptible to leak in a low pressure refrigeration system with open drive type compressors? Chiller tubes, shaft seal, charging connection, shaft bearings. The answer for number 4 will always be the shaft seal. Number 5. Starting in 2019, EPA regulation requires that all chillers containing more than 50 pounds of ozone depleting refrigerant that are used for comfort cooling is the key word, be repaired when the leak rate exceeds 5% of the charge per year, 10% of the charge per year, 20% of the charge per year, or 30% of the charge per year. Again, there are 3 types of refrigeration leak rates: industrial, commercial, and comfort cooling. So industrial is always going to be 30% leak rate, commercial is always going to be 20% leak rate, and comfort cooling is always going to be 10% leak rate. So when you have a question like this, just look for those keywords: industrial, commercial, or comfort cooling, and you will have your answer. Again, commercial 20%, industrial 30%, comfort cooling 10%. Number 6. Which of the following cannot be used as a reason to extend the appliance repair deadline? This is kind of obvious. I'll go over the answers. Requirements of federal, state, or local regulations make the repair within 30 days impossible. The appliance is located in an area that is subject to radiological contamination, necessary to repair parts are unavailable. Now, none of this is an excuse to basically to do a repair. The only one that's an excuse, a certified service technician is not available. That is an excuse. So if you don't have a service technician that can go out, you get someone that can go out. So that is not an excuse. Well, that is an excuse. I'm sorry. That cannot be used as a reason to extend the appliance repair deadline. Number 7. What is the best method to determine a chiller's normal charge leak rate? This is kind of obvious. I won't go through all of them. Once you want to see the leak rate calculation, you look at the nameplate of the system. So let me read the answers. Yes, so you have an idea. Determined from the maximum power consumption. No. Determined from the compressor horsepower. No. Determined from the dimensions of a chiller barrels. No. Use the charge stated on the equipment's nameplate. That will be the answer for number 7. Number 8. Approximately how much refrigerant vapor is left in an average 350 ton R123 chiller at 0 psi once all the R123 liquid has been removed? So when liquor is removed, so it's like 80%. So the answer for this one will not be trace amount, will not be 50 pounds, will not be 75 pounds. It will be 100 pounds because you still got the vapor in it. So it will be 100 pounds. When evacuating a system, the use of a Severely oversized vacuum pump could cause trapped oil to freeze, cause trapped refrigerant to freeze, cause trapped water to freeze, cause the bowl to freeze. Again, you are dealing with chillers. Chillers have water circulating. You're dealing with low pressure equipment. So they have water circulating, and the water is circulating because you don't want, because if the water stops, has refrigerant in it, it will freeze. The water will freeze. So the refrigerant will not freeze, the oil will not freeze, it will be the water to freeze. So the answer for number 9 is C. A rupture disk on a recovery vessel for low pressure refrigerant release at 5 psi, 10 psi, 15 psi, 20 psi. Now, when it says rupture disk, a rupture disk, you always wanna you always wanna think of 15 psi. So rupture disk is always 15 psi. Number 11. What should be on and what should be off during vapor removal from a low pressure refrigeration system? So this one again is simple. I'm gonna go over the answers and then I'm gonna tell you. The system water pump should be on and the recovery compressor should be off. The system water pump and recovery compressor should be on and the recovery condenser water should be off. The system water pump, recovery compressor, and recovery condenser water should all be on. The system water pump should be off and the recovery compressor should be on. Again, well, not again, but once you are once you are doing vapor removal from a low pressure refrigerant or any type of refrigerant, to be honest, you should have everything on. So the answer for number 11 will be C. Number 12. What is a typical advantage of a water-cooled recovery unit? Higher pressure at the recovery compressor, discharge higher pressure in the recovery tank, faster recovery of large quantity of refrigerant, greater percentage of refrigerant. So for number 12 is gonna be a faster recovery. So the bigger the bigger the water cooled recovery, well, when it's water cooled, the pressure is lower, so it's gonna be faster recovery of large quantity of refrigerant. Charging liquid R245 FA into a low pressure refrigeration system under vacuum greater than 18-inch HG vacuum can cause the liquid to absorb excess moisture, purge unit to operate, system water to freeze, system water to boil. Again, water is circulating. You are dealing with pressure, so you never want the water to freeze. So the answer for this one will be C. Number 14. Which of the following actions would always be considered major under EPA regulation? So major, once it has the word major, you want to think of the 4 major components, which is your compressor, your condenser, your evaporator, and the metering device. So those are your 4 major components. Compressor and metering device, they're the ones that change pressure. And condenser is the one that rejects heat. Evaporator is the one that absorbs heat. So once you have the word major, it's gonna be one of those four. So in here, a replacement of evaporator coil, replacement of filter dryer, replacement of a switch, replacement of a press unit. So none of those are major except evaporator coil. So A will be the answer for 14. 15. When should an appliance not be evacuated all the way to prescribed level? So this one is easy. I'm gonna go over the answers. So when performing a major repair followed by a major repair, no. When the repair is followed by an evacuation of the appliance to the environment, no. When the leak in the appliance make evacuation to prescribed level unattainable, when the appliance is being disposed of at a later date. So the only one that makes sense in here will be C, that says when leaks in the appliance make evacuation to prescribed level unattainable. So that will be the answer for 50. Number 16. Which of the following statement is true of recycling and recovering equipment? It must be tested by ASHRAE approved third party. It must be equipped with low loss ball valves and flare fittings. It must be able to handle more than one refrigerant. It must be labeled and certified to meet EPA requirements. So this one says you are doing the EPA test. It must be labeled and as certified to meet EPA requirements. Okay, so number 17. Which of the following methods can be used to pressurize an R23CD system for the purpose of opening the system for a major repair? Adding nitrogen to the system, no. Warming the liquid refrigerant in the system, adding compressed air to the system, you never want to do that. Adding carbon dioxide to the system, no. So the one in here again is low pressure, so you wanna warming the liquid refrigerant in the system. That will be the answer for 17. 18. How long must a technician evacuating refrigerant from an appliance with a full charge of more than 5 pounds and less than 50 pounds of more than 50 pounds that are being disposed of? Keep records of the event. The answer for this is 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, or 10 years. So the answer for this one will be for 3 years. Number 19. What evacuation level must technicians recover refrigerant to before disposing of a low pressure appliance? The answer for number 19, let me go over the answers. 0 psi, 15-inch of HG vacuum, 25-inch of HG vacuum, 25 millimeters of HG absolute. So that's the keyword right there. So 25 millimeters of HG vacuum. That's your answer. D will be the answer for number 19. Number 20. What is the primary purpose of the purge unit on a low pressure chiller? Remove refrigerant? No. Condense air out of the system, condense water out of the system, remove non-condensable from the system. That is what the purge unit is there for, to remove non-condensables from the system. Number 21. Where does refrigerant go after it leaves the purge unit of a low pressure centrifugal system? Purge unit that discharges a high percentage of refrigerant with the air they remove. Purge unit that discharges a low percentage of refrigerant with the air they remove. per unit that consume less than 5 watts of electrical power per unit, which contains less than 50 pounds of refrigerant. So a high efficiency per unit removes low amounts, a low percentage of refrigerant with the air they removed. Number 23. During evacuation of a system containing large amount of moisture, it may be necessary to prevent freezing by increasing pressure using a gas such as, so the only gas you can put in a system will be a nitrogen. So the answers are air, never want air, carbon dioxide, no, or 134A, no. As a refrigerant, you never want to put a refrigerant in a system, especially if it's not already in the system. And nitrogen will be the only one. So number 4. What should be used to remove ice from the sight glass of a viewing glasses? So a sight glass is what you have in the middle of your gauges. So the answer: a torch, no; water, no; a screwdriver, hell no; isopropyl alcohol. That's the answer that you need. So you will need alcohol to remove ice from a sight glass. Which of the following statements about R1233CD is false? It is a SNAP approved replacement for low pressure centrifugal compressor system. It is being considered for applications where R1 or 123 might be used. It is suitable for air conditioning applications where cooling water is used. Large chiller application. It is mildly flammable. So the answer for number 25, it is D. It is mildly flammable. So that's the answer for 25. So we are done with type 3 and the complete core type 1, type 2, and type 3 for practice test number 2 episode. Today we're gonna be doing part 3, and of course we're gonna start with the core. Which of the following refrigerants have the lowest global warming potential? A lowest global warming potential will be one that does not contain chlorine. And we all know all of this contain chlorine and are harmful. They have a high global warming potential. The only one that does not have a high global warming potential will be R600A. How does global warming potential of R410A compare to carbon dioxide? We know it is not lower, it is not equal, it is not 100 times greater, it will be 1,000 times greater. What is the state of refrigerant entering a compressor entering the compressor of a refrigeration system? Now, entering the compressor, it cannot be liquid, so high pressure liquid and low pressure liquid are off, and it will be vapor, but it will not be high pressure vapor. It will be low pressure low pressure vapor. Which type of lubricant or HFO refrigerant immersible in? The answer for this one, it will be POE oil. POE lubricants. And this question is asking why these refrigerants are more likely to reach the stratosphere than other refrigerants containing chlorine. And the answer is they do not dissolve in water. So the answer will be A. What does ozone depletion potential or ODP measures. And it measures the ability of a substance to destroy the ozone in the stratosphere. What characteristic of HFC make them damaging to the environment? And the answer for this one, they have a high ozone depletion potential, or ODP. The answer it will be they have a very high global warming potential. Question number 9. Which of the following refrigerant contains chlorine? Now the answer for this one is kind of simple. The one that contains chlorine in this out of this answers, it will be R22. So the answer will be A. So for question number 10, it's asking you which one does not require a section 608 certification, and all of these answers require a section 608 certification except rewiring an electrical circuit. So for question number 11, they're all reasons to recover refrigerant except avoid violating the warranty on the equipment. So on question number 12, it's just asking you what cannot be done when recharging an appliance, and of course the answer it will be top off with R10A. Now for question number 13, it's asking you in which scenario can refrigerant be vented, and we all know refrigerant cannot be vented. It's against EPA. So the only one that is not harmful to the environment, it will be isobutane, and the one that has isobutane in it is C. And that's gonna be the answer for number 3. Now this one is asking about your gauges, and I'll put a picture up on the screen and your high pressure side, and what it will be 0 to 800 psi. So this one is just asking you why is it better to why does it require you to have it will be 0 to 800 psi. So this one is just asking you why is it better to why does it require you to have a service aperture or a process stub, and the answer will be simple, to make it easier to recover refrigerant. So on this question, basically all the answers are permitted because it's as accidental and it's gonna happen anyway, like de minimis. The only one that makes sense in here is venting refrigerant from a recovery machine. And this one is basically asking you what's the only refrigerants that can be sold to a person that has the EPA certification, and it will be all refrigerants that are not exempt from the venting prohibition, basically the EPA. Okay, so for questions like question 19, that's asking you like the process of removing. So removing, we know, is gonna be a recovery. Recycle, so when it says cleaning, it's always gonna be recycle. But when it says cleaning and it also has chemical analysis at the end, that's gonna be reclaiming. So in this one is saying removing, that's a keyword, and you know it's gonna be recovering. So in this one, leak check is basically, every time it says leak check, it's basically asking you what can you use to leak check, and it will always be nitrogen, or in this case dry nitrogen. What effect will low ambient temperature have on recovery? It will so low ambient temperature, that just means low temperature, and once it's low temperature, it will increase recovery time. Which of the following is a reason to heat a system during a dehydration? The answer in here will be to decrease dehydration time. So on this question is basically telling you when you're leak checking a system, it is basically asking you what should a nitrogen tank have, and it will always have you will always need to have a pressure regulator. So for a nitrogen tank, you will always need a pressure regulator, and that's what it's asking you basically when you leak check a system or you use nitrogen to leak check a system. That nitrogen tank has to have a pressure regulator. Under what condition may you use a disposable cylinder to recover refrigerant? So using a disposable cylinder to recover a cylinder, you should never do that. So that's the answer, never. Before shipping any used refrigerant in a cylinder, is asking what it should have, and it should always be properly labeled, and the answer will be A. And that's it. We've gone over all 25 questions for the core, part 3, by the way. So next video we're gonna go over type 1 for part 3. I know it has been a very long time since I did one of these reviews. Today we are starting part 3 and we're starting type 1. First question. Which of this is included in EPA's definition of small appliance? So for this question, small appliance, you literally it's just the definition. So you can just like look it up on Google everywhere, and it's gonna tell you the definition for small appliance. You'll also get a book. Once you're taking your EPA class, you also get a book that literally has the definition right on the book. So the answer will be a product fully manufactured, charged and hermetically sealed at a factory. That will be the answer for number 1. Number 2, which of the following is an approved substitute refrigerant for new household refrigerator, freezers, and combinations? So none of these refrigerants will be a substitute. The one that will be a substitute and that it is used for freezers and refrigerators is R600A. So that will be the answer for number 2. Question number 3. It says recovery devices for use with small appliance containing CFC, HCFCs, and HFCs must meet which of the following requirements? Now, requirements for a question like this, a trick to it is it is required to recover 80% of the refrigerant and or 4-inch vacuum, but that is when the compressor is operating. So when the compressor is not operating, is 80% or 4-inch vacuum. So the answer says recovering 90% of the refrigerant when the compressor is operating. That's good. Or 4-inch vacuum. That's basically what I just said. Let's read the other one. Recover 80% of the refrigerant when the compressor is operating. That's wrong. 80% is when the compressor is not operating. Recover 95%. No, you never want to recover 95%. Recover 75%. Never 75%. So the only one that makes sense here will be A. Recover 90% of the refrigerant when the compressor is operating. In this question, it says who must certify recovery equipment use the maintenance, service, or repair of a small appliance that uses CFCs, HCFCs, or HFCs. So in this question, it is simple. You are doing EPA, and in here, look for the one that says EPA. So an EPA approved laboratory, that is D. So that's gonna be the answer. EPA approved laboratory. Question number 5. The sale of CFC, HDFC, and HFC and HFO refrigerant service, or install refrigeration and air conditioning equipment are banned from use unless you have recovery machine. Limited by the law to HVAC contractors and or mechanical engineers. Allowed only if there is proof of need. Restricted to technicians who are EPA certified in refrigerant recovery. So basically, well, that's the answer. D, restricted to technicians who are EPA certified. So the EPA certification allows you to purchase and handle refrigerant. So that's basically what it's saying here. It's not banned or anything. It's just restricted for technicians who are EPA certified. Question number 6. When servicing a small appliance found to be leaking is, so a leak, in here it says a lot, mandatory to repair the leak within 80 days, mandatory to repair the leak. So a leak is not mandatory to repair it, but it is recommended to do so whenever possible. So if you find a leak, it's not mandatory to repair it. Like as soon as you see it, it's not mandatory to repair it, but you should repair it as soon as possible. So that's gonna be the answer for number 6. It will be C, not mandatory to repair the leak, but it is recommended to do so whenever possible. That's the answer for number 6. Number 7. All appliances must be equipped with a service aperture or process stub, which is used when adding or removing refrigerant from the appliance. What is typically used on small appliances? So in this question, the only one that makes sense is a straight piece of tubing that is entered using a piercing valve, a piercing access valve. So that will be the answer for number 7. Number 8. What type of appliances are technicians certified to charge and open after passing the type 1 examination? So type 1 examination, you should know it is a small appliance and it is a high pressure. So in here it says appliance containing 5 pounds or less of refrigerant that have been hermetically sealed and charged at factory. So also for this one, what will help you is the definition. So that's basically part of the definition right there, and that will be the answer. I'm not gonna read the other ones because split system, that's like only a certain type. Appliances containing 5 pounds or less. No, that wouldn't be it. Motor vehicles. So EPA 608 is not for a motor vehicle. That will be 609. So the answer for this one will be A, appliance containing 5 pounds or less of refrigerant that have been hermetically sealed and charged at the factory. Number 9. EPA Section 608 rule requires capture of 80% of HCFCs and HFC for small appliances appliance sealed system with a non-operating compressor if technicians are using and this one a system dependent passive recovery, a self-contained active process, neither recovery process. So in this one it will not be any of those, and it's not just for a system dependent or passive, or it's not for a self-contained or active. It will be for either a passive or active recovery process. That will be the answer for number 9. Number 10. It says, which of the following does not meet the criteria for type 1 appliances appliance certification? So on the last question we kind of went over this one, and since I know the answers, the one that is not in 608 certification is motor vehicle, which is an MVAC like system that hold 3 pounds of R12. That will be the answer, because for motor vehicles it's not in 608 certification. That will be 609. Number 11. The system dependent passive recovery process never needs to use a pump or heat to recover refrigerant, must use a pressure relief device to protect the technician, and the equipment recover refrigerant in a non-pressurized container can only be performed on a system with an operating compressor. So for this one, it would be recover refrigerant in a non-pressurized container. And this one is kind of simple. When installing any type of access fitting into a sealed system, so you're installing a fitting into a sealed system. So I'm not gonna go over all the answers because it's kind of obvious. When installing something, it is a sealed system. Once you install it and you brace it or whatever, you want to make sure it doesn't have a leak, so it works good for it, like is good. You did a good job. So you want to a leak check it before you do anything else. So the answer for number 13 will be A. The fitting should be leak tested before processing with recovery. So number 14, when R410A is recovered from an appliance, and this one is mentioning a refrigerant and it's mentioning recover. So normally, if you're recovering a refrigerant, you want a tank specifically for that refrigerant. So you want the tank to be marked just to recover that refrigerant to prevent mixing of refrigerant. So the answer for this one should be recover in a recovery vessel that is clearly marked to ensure the mixing refrigerant does not occur. So that will be the answer for number 14. A standard vacuum pump designed specifically for evacuation and dehydration can, it is kind of obvious, and be used alone as a self-contained active recovery device, No. Never be used as a recovery device in combination with a pressurized container. Be used alone as a substitute for any recovery device. Be used alone as a system-dependent passive recovery device. So the only one that makes sense here is never be used as a recovery device in a combination with a pressurized container. So you never want to do that. So that will be the answer for number 16. I mean number 15. Number 16. When is it essential to take measures to help trap CFC, HCFCs, and HFC refrigerants from the compressor oil during refrigerant recovery? When using self-contained recovery device, when using self-dependent active recovery device, when using passive recovery device on small appliance with non-operating compressor, when the refrigerant system has a low side leak. So in this one, it's talking about a compressor oil. So in the compressor, it has oil, right? So if for trap refrigerant, you kind of like just mash them, oil, compressor, and it will kind of give you the answer. So when using passive recovery device on small appliance with non-operating compressor. So that will be the answer for number 16. Number 17. Which condition requires accessing both the high and low side of the system for refrigerant recovery? When using the system-dependent passive recovery process. When there is a leak in the system, when the compressor operates normally, when the compressor only runs at half speed, when the compressor does not run. So the answer for number 17 is when the compressor does not run at all. So D, when the compressor does not run. So number 18, why should low and high side access valve be installed when recovering refrigerant from a household refrigerator? So and this one is kind of simple. Why should they both be installed? And the only reason you wanna install both when recovering is to improve the speed of recovery. So it's not to prevent non-condensable contamination, it's not to protect the recovery machine, it's not to prevent oil migration, it is to improve the speed of recovery. That one's kind of simple. So number 19, when using a self-contained recovery device on a CFC, HFC, or HCFC or HFC system with an operating compressor, technician should recover the refrigerant to 5" of mercury vacuum. No. So never 5" is a 4" all the time. It's 4". 80% when it's not operating compressor, 90% when it is operating compressor, but it's always 4" vacuum. Recover 80% of the nameplate charge. Recover the refrigerant to both 80" mercury vacuum and 80% of the nameplate charge. Either recover the refrigerant to 4" of mercury vacuum or 90" of the nameplate charge. So there is a good questions on this one, but there's one word that just changes it. But And this one for number 19, you want either recover the refrigerant to 4 inch of mercury vacuum or 90% of the nameplate charge. So in this one, it's not mentioning, it's saying operating compressor. So operating, it is 90, or you can also recover it to a 4-inch mercury vacuum. The other one saying 80% is operating, is 90%. Recover 5-inch, you never want to recover 5-inch. Recover the refrigerant to both 4-inch of mercury and 80%. Again, 80% is when it's not operating. So the answer will be D. So for number 20. So it's basically asking you, for number 20, it's basically asking you the pressure of a refrigerant to the temperature. So in the PT chart that you will get, you gotta match it, and once you match it, you will get the answer or the closest one to the answer that you have in here. And this one, I'm not gonna just go to the PT chart and all that right now. I will just tell you the answer for this one will be 87 psig. So right now, I don't have a book with me. I have the books at the school where I work, so I can't really show you the PT chart and all that. But once you take the test, you will get a PT chart, so it can help you with questions like this, which is talking about the pressure, the temperature, and all that. So you will get that help on your test. Number 21. What may be done to speed the recovery process and ensure that all CFC, HCFCs, and HFC refrigerants have been removed from a frost-free refrigerator? So frost-free, that's a keyword. So when it says frost-free, you automatically, so frost-free, you want to turn on the defrost heater. So you see the word frost-free, turn on defrost heater, and that will be the answer. So which one says it? Cool the compressor? No. Heat the recovery? No. Turn on defrost heater to increase the refrigerant temperature and vaporize any liquid. So frost-free, turn on defrost heater. That's the answer for number 22. When using nitrogen in repairing a sealed refrigeration system, what should the nitrogen tank always be equipped with? So in this one, it's kind of simple, and you're gonna see it a lot in the field once you go in the field. And if you're taking a course and you're going to a trade school, you're gonna see it a lot too every time you use nitrogen. And it's gonna be a pressure regulator, so you can read the exact pressure that you're using. So 24. What gases can CFC and HCFC refrigerant decompose into a high pressure glowing metal surface? So the answer for number 24, what gases can CFC and HFC refrigerant decompose into a high temperature glowing metal surface? It will be a B, phosgene gas. So in this one, 25, the last question, permanent safety markings are not required on which of the following areas on a household refrigerator? um, using CF refrigerant. So on or near any evaporator and near any exposed refrigerant tubing. Now near the machine compartment, now on the inside of the refrigerator door, on the exterior of the refrigerator. So for this one, it will be a C on the inside of the refrigerator door. That will be the answer for number 25. We are done with a type 1 small appliances, and next video of this review we're gonna go over type 2, which is medium pressure. I know it has been a very long time since I did one of these reviews. I do plan on doing it more consistently in the future, but right now we're going over a practice test number 3, type 2. And number 1 is pretty easy, and it's one that has a keyword, and I'll give it to you right now. So it says, which of the following is an indicator of a leak in a high pressure system with a capillary tube? Now, the keyword in here is indicator of a leak. So you don't have to worry about a high pressure system. So the keyword is just indicator of a leak. So indicator of a leak is not going to be high head pressure. It's not going to be low water temperature. It's not going to be frequent purging. It is going to be excessive superheat. So every time you see a leak, it's always going to be excessive superheat. So indicator of a leak, that's the keyword right there. Indicator of a leak equals excessive superheat. So on this one is asking, what is the first thing you should do when a new system has been assembled, built up, and is ready for testing? So before you put the vacuum, before anything, this one's kind of simple. Before you do anything, you just assemble a system. Of course, you want to leak check it, and the one that says that is be pressurized with inert gas and leak check. That will be the answer for number 2. So, for number 3 is a which leak category. So whenever it's asking you about a leak category, is that's another question that is gonna tell you right away, and I will tell you which one is gonna be right away. So it does say the EPA defined as air conditioning appliance used to provide. So this will be basically the keyword: provide cooling in order to control heat and humidity. So if it controls all of that, that's gonna basically, so controls heat, controls humidity, controls cooling. That's basically gonna make you comfortable. That's the way you should think about it. So if it controls all of that, it's gonna make you comfortable. So the answer for this one is gonna be comfort cooling. Number 4, it says, which of the following additions of refrigerant when added to an appliance that contains 50 pounds or more 15 or more pounds of an ozone depleting refrigerant triggers the requirement to calculate the leak rate? The answer for this one is kind of really simple. Is one topping of the system. So that's that's the only answer that makes sense when topping off a system. Question number 5. It says, which of the following is not required to menthol an appliance? So A, shut down the appliance temporarily? No. Recover the refrigerant from the isolated section or component? No. Recover refrigerant from the appliance to at least atmospheric pressure? No. So the answer for this one will be remove the appliance and store it in a warehouse facility. That's gonna be the answers because it does say not required. So you gotta pay attention, especially when it says not required, because they do try to trick you a lot. So on this one is asking you why a recycling or recovery machine that uses a hermetic compressor overheat when drawing a deep vacuum. So the only answer in here is the recycling or recovery machine that uses a hermetic compressor will overheat because the motor relies on the flow of refrigerant through the compressor for cooling. That's why it will overheat, because it relies on the flow of refrigerant for cooling. So in this question is saying that your recovery and recycling machine already has R22 refrigerant in it. You now need to recover refrigerant from an R410A unit. What must be done? So change the recovery cylinder on the recovery machine, yes. Change the expansion valve on the recovery machine, yes. So basically in here it's just naming is all the answers are naming stuff that you have to do. And of course, if they all match the answer will be D, which is all the above. So, and this one is asking you about a recovery refrigerant, what it may contain. So, recovery refrigerant may contain which of the following impurities. So, in here, we know the refrigerants, they contain moisture, they contain oil, and they contain acid. And the only one that actually says that is D, and that is gonna be the answer: acids, moisture, and oil. So question number 9: what is the primary water source for a water-cooled recovery unit condensing coil? Now, a chilled water from the evaporator, no. Condenser water, no. It would be local municipal water supply, which is basically a hose. So a hose is kind of very important, especially when you're also doing a maintenance and everything. You gotta have a hose next to it to just be able to rinse the condenser. But in this question, it's just asking about the water source, and it's gonna be local municipal water supply, which is basically a water hose. So on this question is telling you refrigerant has been recovered from an air conditioning system and held in a refillable cylinder. So in order to they did that in order to replace the condenser coil, but they, of course, they still have it in the cylinder. They didn't like change the refrigerant or the machine or anything. They're just changing the condenser coil. So the answers are may be sold as is to another equipment owner, maybe short as is to another equipment owner. No, because if the other equipment owner has another type of machine that doesn't require that refrigerant, it could go bad, and you don't sell the refrigerant that you need to put back into the system. So it must be reclaimed, no. Must be destroyed, no. So like I said before, may be charged back into the system. So they didn't do anything with the system, they didn't change it, they're just replacing the condenser coil. So the refrigerant may be charged back into the system. So in this one is asking you which one is false. So it says, which of the following statements about recycling and recovering equipment is false? So we know it must be tested by EPA approved third party. A purchase of such equipment must be reported to EPA. It must be equipped with low loss fittings. It does need to be equipped with low loss fittings according to EPA. Equipment designed to recover flammable refrigerant must meet a specific UL safety standard. Yes. So the only one that is false in here, purchase of such equipment must be reported to the EPA. You don't need to report it to the EPA. You just need to have your EPA to be able to purchase it. Number 14. You are changing out the compressor of a system containing 40 pounds of R404A. In addition to isolating the compressor, which of the following procedures should you follow? So in addition to isolating the compressor, what the sequence you should follow is evacuate the isolated section of the system to 0 psi. If the system pressure does not rise after a few minutes, remove the compressor. So that's what you want to do. So for 14 it will be C. So for number 15, this question has come up a bunch of times before. What should be done after reaching the required recovery vacuum on an appliance? So before doing anything, so after you're done doing anything, you want to wait. You never want to do anything after. You want to wait at least a few minutes to see if the pressures regulate or they rise or anything, to do what else is needed after that if the pressures rise. So immediately disconnect, no. Break the vacuum, does something immediate too. Pressurize, does something immediate. So right here, B, it says wait for a few minutes to see if the system pressure rises or not. Okay, so number 16, before making a major repair, technicians must evacuate an appliance or a component containing more than 200 pounds of R410A in which of the following levels? 0 psi G, no. 25 mm HG vacuum, no. A 10-inch of HG vacuum, 15-inch of HG vacuum, no. So the only one in here will be a 10-inch of HG vacuum. That is what you want. And in the book that you will receive once you're taking your once you're studying for your EPA, in the PT chart it will tell you and you will be able to find that. So in here, basically the way I remembered it without even having to look at the book, because once you're taking the test you don't get the book. The way I remember it, I matched so it says R10A, so I matched the 10 with that 10-inch HG vacuum. So I matched the 10 of the 410A with the 10-inch HG vacuum. And I did it so many times before, and I always I always like get that answer. So I came up with that trick so it can help me get the answer even faster without having to look at the book. So number 17, when can appliances containing refrigerant be recovered to atmospheric pressure? So the only reason like you can do this is leaks in the appliance make recovery to prescribed level unattainable. That is why you want to recover it to atmospheric pressure. So on this question, number 18, which of the following repairs would always be considered major under EPA regulation? So major, once it says the word major, any questions that's just have the word major in it, or a major repair, you always want to think of the four major components, which are a condenser, a compressor, evaporator coil, and a metering device, or TXB. So a condenser, compressor, a condenser coil, compressor, evaporator coil, and metering device. That will be the answer. Well, that will be the four major components. The answer will be replacement of an evaporator coil. So A will be the answer for number 18. Now, number 19 is asking you what is it against EPA regulation to use system-dependent recovery equipment. Now, if you look up a system-dependent recovery equipment, it says 15 pounds or under. This one, when is it against EPA regulation, is of course when it's 15 pounds or over. So the answer will be C, when the appliance containing over 15 pounds of refrigerant. That will be the answer for number 19. To avoid freezing, the water contained in a water-cooled heat exchanger of an R134A refrigeration system. During changing, the system should be intentionally charged with R134A vapor to a pressure of approximately. Okay, again, on your PT chart on the back of your book, you go to the actual refrigerant and the pressure. You'll go to the pressure, and it would get you 30 psig, which that's the answer. C is the answer for this question. So 0 psig will not be it, 10 psig will not be it, 90 psig will not be it either. It will be 30 psig for this answer. So 20 will be C. So for number 21, what will non-condensable in a refrigeration system result in? So we know that non-condensable in a system will cause a higher pressure, but in this case it will cause higher discharge pressure. So D will be the answer for number 21. So in this question, number 22, during evacuation with large amount of moisture, it may be necessary to increase pressure to counteract freezing with gas, such as. So anytime you're putting gas in a system, it will be a dry nitrogen. In this case, it doesn't say dry, it says a nitrogen. But you wouldn't want to put a R22. You wouldn't want, because right now you don't know what refrigerant is in it, and it's probably not R22 or 410A. It's not gonna be air, because air will basically make the system explode. So it will be dry nitrogen. In this case, nitrogen. So equipment room refrigerant detector not required. So throughout the book, you see all these refrigerants come up. You see R134 come up. You see R404 come up. You see R410A come up. But you never see R717, and that will be the answer because it's not required for that refrigerant because it's an exempt refrigerant. It's not harmful. So a reciprocating compressor will be damaged when energized if something is left closed. So the answer for this one will be when the discharge service valve is closed. So that will be the answer, and that will be why the compressor will be damaged if energized. So for question number 25, pressure release valves are always installed in series. They're never installed parallel. So that's the answer. The answer for number 25, the last question of this section, will be A. That will be the answer for number 25. Next video, we are gonna do type 3, and then I'll put it all together for you guys to watch the long video of covering the whole practice test number 3 for you guys. Peace. We are in type 3 of practice test number 3. So let's get right into it. First of all, for type 3, you know this is low pressure. So you gotta think of chillers and stuff like that. So once you're doing type 3, just know that you are doing type 3 because you can get the same questions on type 1 and type 3 and it could be different answers. So know that you're on type 3 once you're doing type 3. Where would you place a leak detector probe to check for gas leaks into the water box with water removed? Now in this question, it's really simple. You see the word water box, that's a key word. Water box is gonna be in the drain valve opening. Water drain, so just mix those two. You see water box, you know is in the drain valve opening. Leak testing a low pressure refrigeration system with with nitrogen in excess of 10 psi could cause which of the following to fall? And once it exceeds 10 psi, 10 psig, it will be the rupture disc. It will always be rupture disc, especially when you're talking about type 3 low pressure systems. So for number 2, it will be D. On a low pressure system, moisture most frequently enters the system through, this is mostly everything, just not just chillers, just everything. It will enter to in the system from places that have gaskets and fittings. And the only one that says that is D. So I mean is C. So C will be the answer for number 3. Question number 4. What precautions should be taken prior to recovering refrigerant from a chiller suspected to be having tube leaks? Now, a chiller low pressure tube leaks, tubes mainly have water. A chiller has water running through it. So that question will be obvious in this one. Drain the water side of the evaporator or condenser. I mean, evaporator and condenser. So A will be the answer for number 4. So on number 5 is asking you what category does a chiller belong to? A commercial, industrial, process refrigeration, comfort cooling, or ice making machine. Now chillers, it is really big equipment and it's mainly for really big buildings and really big buildings. So they have a lot of air going to separate rooms, and it's basically making every room feel comfortable, like having the right air, removing the right moisture, the right heat, so it's not as humid, so it makes you comfortable. So basically, comfort cooling, that's the category it belongs to. Number 6, who is responsible for keeping records? Now, for keeping records, it will be the owner and operator of the system. Owner or operator of the system, which is kind of basically the same thing. But the owner, whoever owns the system, or the operator, whoever operates in the system, that's who should be keeping record. So the answer for number 6 will be C, the owner and operator. So this one is asking you which of the following cannot be used as a reason to not show up for a service call. And this one is simple. The only one in here that cannot be a reason to show up for a service call. So the only one in here that cannot be used as a reason is if a certified service technician is not available. If someone's not available, you just send someone else, but you can't let the customer keep on waiting. So how much is left? How much vapor is left after all the liquid has been removed of a 350 ton R123 chiller at 0 psi? How much vapor is left? I'll tell you right now, the answer will be 100 pounds of 100 pounds of vapor will be left because all the liquid has been removed. Now I will put up a picture of the PT chart, how to actually find this, and how much liquid refrigerant and vapor refrigerant you need, and you'll basically remove all the liquid and then all the vapor. So there's a certain percentage that you need on each system. Refrigerant, liquid refrigerant and vapor refrigerant. There's a certain percentage that you need, and the answer for this one will be D, which is 100 pounds of vapor refrigerant. So why should that oil be removed from a low pressure system at 130 Fahrenheit? It will be because less refrigerant will be contaminated. So B will be the answer for number 10. So on a question like this, when it's asking you about the rupture disc, so on this one, a rupture disc or a rupture disc on a recovery vessel from a low pressure refrigeration relieves at. So when it's asking you about a rupture disc, in this case, you're on type 3, a low pressure. So when a rupture disc is a key word in here, when he just mentions rupture disc, you know it will be 15 psi. Now, the one of the last ones that we did is it did say when rupture disc fails, that's 10 psi G. But in this one, a rupture disc, when he says rupture disc and not fail or anything like that, it will be 15 psi G. So in this one, what should be on and what should be off during vapor removal from a low pressure system? You have to look for the one that says they all should be on. So everything should be on. So all should be on. So C will be the answer for number 11. So dealing with a low pressure system, why should water be circulated? So water should always be circulated, because if water is not circulated and water just stops, it will it's so cold that it will actually freeze. So water needs to be circulated throughout the whole system. So to prevent freezing of water in the appliance. So why is a vapor refrigerant reintroduced to a chiller before a liquid refrigerant? And the answer is pretty obvious for this one. It will be D. So on questions like this, these are my favorite type of questions, to be honest, because the keyword is so simple. It is major and is asking you about what is considered a major under EPA regulation. So major, you always got to think about the four major components. So compressor, condenser, evaporator, and metering device. So just look at the answer for one of those once it mentions a major, and in this case will be replacement of the evaporator coil. That is a major component of the refrigeration system, so that will be the answer for number 14. So we have done this question multiple times before. When can a appliance not be evacuated all the way to prescribed level? That is when the prescribed level is unattainable, and that will be answer C. So C will be the answer for number 15. Which of the following statement is true about recycling recovering equipment? And the answer will be D. It must be labeled and certified to meet EPA requirements. So in this question, there are two key numbers that you need to look at. That is more than 5 pounds and less than 50 pounds. So it will not be 1 year, because that is like you need more. It will not be 5 years though. It will not be 10 either. It will only be 3 years. Not 1, not 5, not 10. But it will be 3 years. So the answer will be B. What evacuation level must technicians recover refrigerant to before disposing of a low pressure appliance? And it will be 25 millimeters of Hg absolute. Absolute. There's one that is 25 millimeters of Hg, but this one is absolute. So in this one, it's talking about what's the primary reason for a purge unit on a chiller, but a purge unit in any equipment is to remove non-condensable from a system. So in a chiller, it's the same thing, remove non-condensables. So the answer will be D, is to remove non-condensables. This one is asking where is the purge unit located, and the purge unit will always be located in the top of the condenser. So again, for number 23, I will put up a picture of the PT chart, how you get to this answer, but I will tell you right now the answer for this one will be 40 Fahrenheit. So I will put a picture so you can, and I'll tell you guys how to actually find the answer, but the answer for this one will be 40 Fahrenheit. So in this one, air in a system will always give you high pressure, but in this case, it will be high head pressure. In this one, it will be pretty simple. It will be when the TLV TWA is exceeded, and I'll put what it actually means. So I'll put the whole answer, but the answer for this one will be A. So on type 2, we had the same question for number 25, and is how much pressure relief valve be installed, and it will be in parallel. But in this case, it says not be installed. It should never be installed in series. So the question is A for number 25. And we are done with practice test number 3. So I'll make this video and then I'll put it all together so you can watch the whole part 3 of this Well, so you can watch the whole part 3. And then next video, about when we do another EPA review video, we're gonna start with practice test number 4.